ready when Oh, here we are. Good morning. The City of Tampa Community Redevelopment Agency meeting is called to order. Board Member Carlson has the invocation today.
Good morning, everybody. One of the churches I go to is Hyde Park United Methodist, and you all may know that churches around the country and around the world have been shrinking, but the Hyde Park United Methodist Church has been growing, while some other Methodist churches have not. And a few years ago, the First United Methodist Church in downtown, which is a beautiful mid-century modern building, I think, was it Genuine was the architect? I can't remember. Anyway, that building was handed over to the Hyde Park United Methodist Church, and it could have been taken down at that time. It could have been sold off in some kind of development. Instead, the members of the church decided to turn it into a social enterprise, and the person that's running it is Justin LaRosa, who I think everybody knows. So Reverend Justin LaRosa, LCSW, is an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church, a licensed clinical social worker, a certified Enneagram practitioner, author, and spiritual entrepreneur who leads change. He is a director and minister of the Portico, which is that operation of the old church, a cutting-edge initiative in the oldest church in downtown Tampa, which became the Portico. It includes a social enterprise cafe, a historic chapel, spaces to meet and work, an event space for the public, and an unconventional church that serves the city in ways that address equality, housing, insecurity, and economic challenge. Additionally, he is one of the founders and board members of Portico Housing Solutions, Inc., and has a part-time private practice. So we'll stand, and Justin will do the invocation, then we'll say the prayer. Then we'll say the pledge.
Thank you, everyone. Let's pray. God of many names, we gather together in your presence this morning, centering ourselves on your goodness. We gather with open minds and grateful hearts and offer thanks for this city and the opportunity to serve. Thank you for the engaged citizens that are here, the city council, the aides, all the city employees who work behind the scenes to make Tampa function, thrive, and grow. May you give them all a spirit of wisdom and humility and servanthood. And we pray for the downtown residents and workers, including those people who don't have a place to lay their head. We pray for the citizens who will advocate and invest their time and talent to build this inclusive and diverse city and deal with the many issues before us that relate to growth and poverty. The Hebrew Scriptures implore us to seek the welfare of the city, and the New Testament reminds us over and over again not to forget the needs of the poor. And so they are before us. Keep us mindful of the people and families who are spending more than half of their wages on housing, and empower this team of amazing people to construct a city that builds on our many strengths and that takes care of all of its residents. So we ask that you provide astute discernment and clarity and direction to each council member as they process the many issues and reports on the agenda. Allow their discussions to be productive and respectful, even amidst disagreement, and ignite us to be the people you have called us to be. And I pray these things in Christ Jesus. Amen.
Sure. Board Member Carlson.
Just one more thing related. Justin, he took off. One more thing about the Portico real fast. One of the nonprofits that leases from them at a reduced rate is Love Inc., which helps homeless people. And about a year and a half ago, someone I knew was a day or two away from being homeless and got in touch with Love Inc. because I was involved with the Portico. And Justin, he found me and other people that supported this person. We did a GoFundMe campaign to raise enough money to help the person find affordable housing. And it shows the power of connectivity and the power of nonprofits that help people. But that is one story. Ms. Connie Burton's in the audience and others who talk about these issues every week. But the person I knew who was almost homeless had a health issue and couldn't work anymore. And we're all one health issue away from potentially being homeless. And so I encourage everyone to get involved in nonprofits and other ways to try to help all the people who are dropping through the cracks and end up potentially in a homeless situation like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Carlson?
Here.
Viera? Maniscalco?
Here.
Citro?
Here.
Goods?
Here.
Miranda?
Here.
Hurtak?
Here.
You have physical quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Massey, I don't believe we need to do this
No.
anymore?
No, you don't.
The-
Your bylaws are essentially the same as city council's bylaws. So since your bylaws, the city council have been changed to allow public comment via CMT or virtually, you do not we don't have to do a motion any longer.
Wonderful, I just wanted to double check. Okay, Ms. Travis, if we could look at the agenda today.
Real quick, before you go to the agenda, if we could get a motion to approve the minutes for last month's CRA meeting.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Good, seconded by Board Member Citro. All in favor? Okay, motion passes.
Good morning, CRA board members. Nicole Travis, Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity, Interim CRA Director. Madam Chair, for the agenda, we would like to take items 5, 6, and 10 together when the time allows. There's a continuance request for items 7, 8, and 9 to May 11th, 2023 CRA meeting, please.
Okay, I have a motion from Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
That's it for your agenda, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Goods, seconded by Board Member Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, Mr. Murphy. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment, gosh, apologies. So if anyone wants to speak today, please come up. You'll have 3 minutes if you want to form a line. Anyone this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday. I'm Sally Issy Lee with the Volunteer Missionary Society Penny Fund. And my help comes from God above. And the scripture says, if you help the poor, you are lending to the Lord, and he will repay you. And also, I got a telephone call. I called all you all's secretary yesterday, and Councilman Maniscalco, your secretary, set a meetup for us for Monday at 9 o'clock at the center, and I was wondering if you could still be able to make it. Lisa Edwards.
Did she put it on, I'll check and put it on the calendar, but I'll get the details from you when you finish speaking. I'll make sure to be there, so.
It will be Monday at 9 o'clock, so, do I need to leave my phone number or anything
No,
about?
after you speak, I'll meet you outside and I'll get the details and I'll put it in the calendar.
Yes, and thank you all for being considerate towards the volunteers and everybody, agencies, and you all please give us consideration for funding and what we need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Eileen Henderson, 914 West Fribley Street. I realize this is a CRA meeting, however, what I have to say is relevant to today's meeting and all public meetings. First, I want to share my sincere gratitude for having a platform for citizens to express themselves. I'm sure most, if not all of us, appreciate the opportunity to share thoughts, ideas, and comments. With that said, there's much value to be had in the public comment portion of the City Council meetings. That value lies in the recording of history. That same history that allowed us to search Tampa City Council meeting minutes during the Save Woodlawn Cemetery campaign and find that on August 17, 1900, a section for black burials was commissioned. Public comments do become public record, and while we are acutely aware City Council cannot assist with Memorial Park Cemetery, the reality is what we are doing is making sure that future generations know community members stood before City Council representing hundreds with families buried there, including thousands and thousands that have no voice. For prosperity's sake, we are making sure that for the record, those that come after us will know there were people that cared enough about Tampa's Black history to make a point to stand up every chance we get. All the voices of support brought Memorial Park Cemetery into the spotlight, forcing action to take place to secure it, and it added to the current repertoire of Tampa's all-white historical cemeteries. Its significant value should be held with high esteem as a historical black cemetery with the only black veterans monument with over 850 veterans buried there. So please know, we get it. You can't help the cemetery. This historical black cemetery is protected from development. We get it. That is not why we are here. We are here because this is history in the making, and we will not be silenced. Save Memorial Park Cemetery.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Board Member Good.
Mr. Massey, I know this morning we're meeting as a CRA board, but can this board or either refer it to City Council to see how staff can look at making Memorial Park the criteria for making it a historical site?
Well, first of all, you can't really do that in your capacity as CRA. Anything that, I think what you're asking is for Memorial Park Cemetery to be landmarked as a local landmark. That's done through the city's historic preservation program. At City Council, perhaps tonight you could make a motion asking for Mr. Fernandez and his staff to report back on whether that's part of their program or whether they could add it to their program to study the potential of landmarking that as a local historic landmark.
Ms. Travis, you're getting up there, sir.
Yes, good morning again. Nicole Travis, Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity. Historic preservation is in my portfolio, and Dennis Fernandez is already working on that.
So I don't need to make a motion tonight.
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hallie Reed. I live at 2059 Ronald Circle. In negotiations to buy back Memorial Park Cemetery, the current owner, Alex Ortega, will certainly ask for a very high price and do everything he can to maximize his profits. The land Memorial sits on, if it were regular commercial land, would be incredibly valuable. But that is not commercial land. It is a historic cemetery, one that has not been financially valuable for nearly 20 years. Memorial Park Cemetery is full. There are no more plots that can be sold. Underneath the large patches of green in between headstones are tightly packed unmarked graves. I know this, and I can say so with confidence because last summer I managed to document over 15,000 burials. Even with all the burials I was able to count, there was a large gap in the research I was able to do. So the true number is probably close to 20,000. The fact that Memorial Park is full is what caused it to fall into neglect and severe disrepair in the situation we are in today. When Alex Ortega bought Memorial Park Cemetery, the mayor's office issued a statement saying that the new owners would be held accountable for its well-being. As of now, Memorial Park Cemetery is in significant need of repair and restoration work, starting with putting a full fence around it. Without a fence, homeless encampments have been made there at night, leaving behind trash, discarded belongings, and they have damaged headstones by cracking food containers against them. I have been visiting Memorial Park Cemetery on a regular basis for about a year now, and on a rate of about one per month, chickens are sacrificed there at night and left there to rot. When I was taking pictures yesterday, I smelled the latest chicken before I saw it. One of the most urgently needed repairs at Memorial is repairs to the very large hole in the vault of Jonas Lee Tillman. The wooden casket is clearly visible to anyone who looks down in there.
Just one moment. If you could show that image, please, for everyone on the Elmo. Okay.
Oh,
The hole has gotten significantly larger since I first noticed it last year. In addition, there are also at least 2 gaping open sinkholes currently covered with construction barricades. All of this becomes even more alarming knowing that Memorial Park has a history of bone theft. In 2006, the vault belonging to 7-year-old Stevie Dale was pried open and his remains were stolen. To my knowledge, the remains were never recovered. There are 2 other above-ground vaults with top slabs that have been pushed to the side, likely during Hurricane Ian, with the contents visible inside. There are also numerous broken and toppled over headstones and headstones that have been sunken into the soft ground so far that the name is covered up. Numerous ground level vaults are so overgrown that the concrete covering them is barely visible. Memorial's location on MLK and the fact that people walk through it during the day means that it accumulates trash. If Memorial were owned by the city, the Cemetery Society could put together a dedicated group of volunteers to pick this trash up once a month. But because it is owned by Ortega, it is his responsibility, as well as repairing the broken vaults and headstones. Finally, I would like to address Alex Ortega personally. The city of Tampa may have made a mistake in losing Memorial at auction, but is doing everything it can to remedy this mistake. By refusing to sell Memorial Park back at a reasonably low price and trying to maximize your profits on top of Tampa's history of black trauma and cemetery erasure, you align yourself with some of the worst people in Tampa history. Is this really what you want your legacy to be?
Thank you. Thank you. Board Member Goods.
Mr. Massey, have we sent a letter to the new owners with the state law criteria, making sure the cemetery is upkeep since now they've taken possession of it?
We have had one in-person meeting with him, and he's aware that he is subject to state law regarding the preservation of cemeteries. We will have follow-up meetings with him, and we will emphasize that back. So.
Yes.
Regarding Councilman, Board Member Goods, I should say, I think we ought to make a motion to that, to have it officially done. I'm not saying it wasn't done, I'm sure it was done, but to have it on the record in case this ever goes to court, that we pinpoint the responsibility on the owner, current owner of the cemetery. And I would second Mr. Goods' motion.
You want to make that here, make it at the city council, which one you prefer?
You could make it as a CRA board, but it probably makes more sense as city council
All right, we'll
doing
do it
that, to be
tonight.
quite honest with you.
CT, get that motion ready for tonight, please, reference to the cemetery.
Good morning.
Councilman. My name is Reed Chilser. I came before last week to the city council. What's going on 48th Street? Nothing has been done. They used the right of way to wash cars. It's not a commercial neighborhood. It's a residential neighborhood. They get the dirt bike, go to 3201. They gain up over there. They ride the dirt bike up and down 48th Street. Cars on 48th Street taking 48 like a racetrack. And it's sad. And Mr. Goods, you came by the house last week, but I was home. You could have stopped and let me know something. Because if we try to get this neighborhood right, for the people that rent, they don't care. People that own their home like me have to pay property tax. And it's not right. Every year I have to pay about $1,000 on property tax and let the renter come in, do what they want. They need to put some speed bumps. If they don't want to put speed bumps, they need to put three-way stop sign. Because it's ridiculous how the car just coming down 48. And the dirt bike on the weekend racing back and forth on 48th Street. And I've been in my house since 1981. And I try to keep it up so that people like that with the landlord, they don't care. And I just wish I help her, please, please. If I have to keep her coming back, please do that for me and the other homeowners.
Board Member Goods.
My office did send a memo to the administration. I'm one person. I can get it to them, but they have to act upon it. I can talk to them till I'm blue in the face. We've sent it. We'll send another memo to the administration asking that code, mobility, and the police department get out there to reevaluate. You're right. I've gone through that. I know what it looked like down there. And again, CT called me. I went through there, and again, we've already sent that. So hopefully, now again, we'll send another one. Ms. Travis just got up, so we'll send another email to the administration asking them to send a team out there to see what else we can do. That's all I can promise you for right now until I leave in a couple of weeks. But I'll still be coming to that podium if things are not looked into.
Okay, I want to ask you, Mr. Gould, they're on 3201. They're the one that keep all the commercial on going on. Dirt bag. If a guy gathered to that house, the mom don't care. They have the car park all the way down 48th Street. I wish you'd do something about that
We're gonna
address.
put that in the memo, all right?
Okay.
All right.
Ms.
Thank you.
Travis, if you could possibly talk to her, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And please, if you have a cell phone, if you could please silence it while you're in chambers, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, CRA Board Chair, Board members, Allison Hewitt, East Tampa resident. I sent an email to you guys early this morning. As we get to the budget season, I just want to be able to point out that we are in the East Tampa CRA trying to move things forward and going to be rolling over some dollars. Ms. Travis and Mr. Lee Strongbow has been working really hard to be able to turn the ship around and move things forward. And so we are hoping that as you are agreed when the CAC came before you, that you will pay attention to the type of projects that have been funded and actually the lack of projects that have been funded. I am a consultant in my day-to-day life, so I live and die by the contracts that govern me with my clients. And so I did have some comments about the service agreement. Under the Article 1, redevelopment services, the actual activities that the service agreements have a lot of passive language as a assist in there. One of the things that we have had challenges with in the East Tampa CRA is legal and purchasing. We send things over and they get stuck and bogged down. And if someone was going to be governed by the letter of the law, they can say, well, we will assist you as soon as we can. So again, as Ms. Travis and Elise Drumagol are trying to move things forward, if you can help support them in trying to put some fire under the assist language. The other section that I had a little bit of concern with is the Article 3, staff and compensation. There is a line in there that says the CRA director will ensure that all programs and initiatives align with the city, the CRA board's mission and vision. My challenge with that is technically, first they should align with the state statute that governs CRAs before we do the city and do the CRA boards and mission, that we are in line with the state statute. Then I had a concern about the CRA director performance review. Clearly outlined what would happen if the vote didn't happen and you have a 6-month cure period, but wasn't really clear on who sets those benchmarks, what are they, who will be responsible to make sure that they are achieving those goals, who drafts that, to have that clarity in the contract. And I deeply regret that comments that I try to make to represent my neighborhood, where I'm third generation, is seen as a distraction, but I work as hard as I possibly can on my free time to make sure that I am representing the area that I am a third generation from and plan on to continue to stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair?
Yes, Board
Ms.
Member
Travis,
Gooch.
did you want to address some of her comments? Okay.
Sometimes you have to know when to pull back. But good morning. I want to be in alignment of the prayer that was presented this morning, that we have to focus on the needs of the poor. And if the church is not such, and if we're not such, then it calls for a critical reexamination of who we are. April the 4th, 1968 represents something dear to most of us, and that was the loss of one of our greatest leaders, Dr. King. And I would like to focus you on one of Dr. King's most, I think, best speeches when he talked about the other America. And when I hear the other America, it aligns me with the other Tampa, a Tampa that is prospering and a one that is not. A one that has had a CRA, the first CRA in the state of Florida, and is still languishing in poverty, gentrification, a loss of hope, and great apathy because we can't move the bar. what we see happening coming out of the civil rights movement, brilliant black people elevating themselves to work with the administration, but it's powerless because it cannot do what the people need it to do. What we've been asking for the last 2 years is that we want our young people to have a wonderful live summer job experience. It's not on the agenda. I don't blame them, but I blame the administration, because you can't talk about gun violence, death, and the lack of economic opportunities when you provide nothing. We want our children aligned with hope. We do not see hope in just them picking up paper. The CRA board agreed to hiring of 72 young people. It has been scaled back to 36. We was not asking city staff to mentor these children, but we said we had enough money in our budget, almost $20 million, to afford a consultant to develop these young people so they can understand the real world of work. We have to give them something that counter what they see through rap music and all of the other false facade on how to get money. And what we constantly get is a pushback from the mayor surrogates, whether they are here or on the radio, saying no. But what you will see moving forward is a turnaround in this city, because we're beginning to understand what economic prosperity can look for all. It cannot be that we're wishing that our community could do better when we have the financial means for it to happen. $600,000 blossoming up in East Tampa when we are spectators. We want to see a turnaround from that. Thank you.
Just for the record, your name?
My name, Connie Burton.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Noreen Copeland Miller, and I live at 1911 East Chelsea. And I'm here this morning to say I am a part of the East Tampa Partnership, the CAC. I'm a CAC board member. And I know that the city's working, there's some negotiating going on with the owner of the Memorial Park Cemetery. Because basically my number one issue right now is save Memorial Park Cemetery. And I know a couple of years ago when we asked for, when we talk about slum and blight and infrastructure, the CAC board offered, we wanted to, and put in a request to put a fence on the MLK side and a fence on the 26th Street side to close it in with some additional signage for Memorial Park Cemetery. That was tabled, and then we requested again, and that's when we found out about the city didn't own it anymore. The bottom line here, it's time to do the right thing, and I did listen to one of the board members last week saying that we need to understand you all didn't have anything to do with that. It's very clear what happened to me, but you are public officials serving, we're your constituents. We got citywide up there, we got districts. All of you, when you see something happens wrong, I expect your support to make it right. Not sit up and play a blame game, because at this point, it's after the fact. It has happened. It is time now to fix it. We are going into the 5th month. I don't want to continue to talk about this for 2 years, because we couldn't get a fence up. But maybe now, since people see the historical value in that cemetery, people, family members are there, that we'll do the right thing for the city of Tampa, for a historical black cemetery, to save our history so that people be more engaged and interested in those souls that are in there. A lot of people that contributed to building this great city, as some call it paradise, and all of those things, but we are over in the land of the forgotten. That's how I'm feeling about right now in our area, in the Bama Heights area, in the Jackson Heights area. It's so convenient to call it East Tampa because that's so broad, and we know East Tampa go all the way to Falkenberg. But the historical things that are going on in my neighborhood is being erased. And I certainly want this council to do better and make it right. Because like I said, I'll come here every week until something happens with Memorial Park Cemetery. But I thank God he's allowed me to come down and speak to you guys as well as the owner, should have a sense of responsibility. We all do, and I expect you all to hold up your responsibility as you, a public official serving this city of Tampa, and your constituents. And it doesn't matter who's to blame. Please fix it, and I deploy with all of you. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, and Councilman Goose, thank you for your service.
Board Member Goods.
You know, I've been on both sides. I've been as an employee and as a councilman. And what I've seen through my whole time and tenure in this city with this government, and I'm gonna probably get dinged for it, but you know, I'm walking out the door, so it don't really make a big difference. See, what you have still, you have institutional racism still, governmental racism. And until you're able to weed out that, you're going to continue to have the same thing. Until people have the mindset to help everyone instead of helping a certain class, you will still have the same thing. East Tampa is a certain place, and you categorize it because, like one person said, you know, you have a Southeast Seminole Heights, a Southern Seminole Heights. You're breaking it up now, breaking it up. And until you have a team, or the administration puts together a team, and Ms. Travis and Mr. Drungler, man, they're working their butts off, but man, they can't do it by themselves. They just can't do it by themselves. Can't nobody say it. They've got to go through so much hoops to get things done. They have to fight too. It's not that they don't want to get it done. They've got it done in other places, but they've got to be able to have permission or be able to have the guys to get it done. But you have to have a team to make East Tampa change. And in my mind, Mr. Carlson said something a long time ago, until the CRA board takes control of their power and be able to get a team, or the administration works together to get a team strictly for East Tampa, we're going to get the same results. I'm just going to be honest, you're going to get the same results, because those two folks can't do it by themselves. And talking about running a city with the economic impact the city has. You know, we have to tell the truth. I talk about it all the time, and again, my mouth gets me into trouble, but I'm who I am. I don't change who I am. I'm the field Negro. I'm not the house Negro. And in Tampa, we have a lot of, sometimes my own people, sometimes my other house Negro. They hold us back sometimes.
Yes.
I speak truth to power. I don't, we have a lot of pawns. But what I say to the community, say to this board, let's move forward. Let's make something happen. Let's push this next board, who it may be, this administration, to get a team for East Tampa, an actual team, and say, go out and make it happen. Give them help, make it happen. Because Mr. McCray can't do it by himself. He's still got some learning to do himself. I speak truth to power on it. He was brought here to calm us down.
Yes.
Calm the black folks down.
Yes.
Ms. Travis is here. She has the experience and knowledge, but man, this woman is busy. Mr. Drummer goes busy too. They're trying their best, but they need help. And hopefully, in the near future, this board, or whoever this board will be, will actually get the help that they truly deserve and need to make things move. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, we're going to talk about the service agreement today. We, 4 years ago, more than anybody in recent years, separated the CRA from the city, but we were not given the staff that could help us implement the things we need to do. And we kept asking, we made motions and things weren't happening. And now we've got staff that are making things happen finally, but they're doing it part-time. Hopefully we're going to get some permanent staff soon. When we get to the contract, I'm going to talk about staff, but it's the same thing with the city. I don't know about you all, but I hear complaints at every single department. There are systemic service issues in every department of the city. And even in Nicole's department, and Nicole is outstanding. You know, we've got great leaders. OSEA, I think, is a great leader. I mean, we've got great leaders in departments, but we've got, you all remember the movie Office Space, where they put the guy down in the cubicle downstairs? I see that kind of thing happening all the time here. The taxpayers of the city can't afford to pay somebody to sit in a cubicle downstairs. We need to push the people who play politics we need to get out because we don't need the dirty politics anymore. And then the people who nod and then don't do anything because they keep getting pushed up because they don't ruffle feathers, they need to get pushed out because we need people who get results. I know the chief of staff in Ernest has all these metrics and everything, but we've got to hold people accountable to metrics, and we got to move the dead weight out faster. The taxpayers don't want to pay for it, and they want results. All across the city, every neighborhood, every homeowner thinks that only their street has potholes on it, or everybody thinks that only their park is falling apart, or only code enforcement is not affecting their area. We've got to fix that systemically, and we're being held accountable now through the elections, but in 4 years, our legacies are going to be cemented based on what we did. And people, as you heard just now, people don't care whether it's the mayor that did it or we did it. We're all being held accountable for the same thing. So I would just ask the administration, please work with us. But when we get to budgeting time, I think by charter, the budget is the purview of council. By law, the CRA budget is a purview of the CRA board. We have the control. We can go through with a knife and cut it. We can cut out the people who are playing dirty politics. We can cut out the dead weight. If people aren't performing, we can ask the chief of staff to come present the performance numbers and show us who's not performing, and we'll cut them out of the budget. That's where we have our power. But we need to, if we don't do it, in the next 4 years, we're going to get more and more people coming before us asking us, why aren't things getting done? And we do have the power. It's in the budget. We don't have executive authority, but we do have authority over the budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Miranda.
Thank you very much. I would like to, and I'll do it in the city council meeting. I don't think it's a CRA, but the city is divided into 4 quadrants, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which compose the whole city of Tampa, which then the districts are composed in districts 1, 2, and 3 citywide. So somewhere there's a budget that tells you how much money was spent in each quadrant and why it was spent and how it was spent, if I remember from the past. So not today, because now it's a CRA, but city council tonight, we'll make a motion for the administration to give us collectively the 4 sums of the digits of those 4 districts to find out where the money went, where it was spent, and who benefited from it. So I'll do that tonight. Thank you very much.
Yes, Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, when you look at it, the way they presented last year, most of the money for South Tampa was from the stormwater project, and I think pipes, because they all happen to be there. But what we need to do, there are citywide mobility plans, citywide public safety plans, citywide parks plans. All of those have taken 3 or 4 years, and those should show us how things are being spent equitably. The parks plan is going to be presented to us in a couple weeks, and it should show how we could equitably spend in each quadrant, but also with the oldest, most rundown services or facilities. And so I'm all for equity. The only thing I want to be careful of is that these big infrastructure projects are being used as investments in neighborhoods. For the short term, the neighborhoods see them as a big pain because they can't drive around, and they think there's a lack of coordination. But in the long run, it might solve flooding problems or other things. But we need to make sure that there's efficiency in all the different departments, starting with CRA and everything else. We have in theory, complete control over CRA. We need to make sure that every single person is operating effectively, and we need to make sure that we hold the budget accountable for getting delivery of service everywhere else. Thank you.
Okay, we have one person registered online. Are they online?
Mr. Randolph?
Yes, good morning. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. Good morning, City of Tampa. Good morning, CRA. Today I want to talk about a follow-up discussion on the West Tampa Technology Wealth Building and Job Creation Center. As you know, we talked a lot about the Wealth Building Center related to the West Tampa home-based / e-commerce initiative. Today, I want to talk about the technology part of that initiative. As you know, the service industry, as we know it today, is gone. If you're going to get a job for construction, forget it. They have 3D printers now. They can come out and bring houses out. So the service industry in that respect is gone. If you're trying to get a job at the supermarket, forget it. Machines are taking over. The West Tampa Technology Center was put together to even the playing field. The West Tampa Technology Center will teach in terms of how to do Web 3. Web 3 is important because Web 1 and Web 2 was taken over by Facebook, TikTok, and all these other organizations. Now it's a new day, and with the Web 3 can even the playing field. In addition to that, e-commerce, we'll be teaching as well as artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT, virtual reality, applications related to games, mobile, web pages, etc., social media, and even the digital divide. This initiative is very important because today we need to plan for today and tomorrow. Jobs that used to be there, folks, are gone quick and fast. That's a crisis out here. We need to deal with technology like yesterday. The strategy that the West Tampa has is to do the deal at the cheapest possible price, because you don't need $1 million in order to bring this technology to the community. I want to give a shout out to Councilman Miranda. You've been around for a second. You've seen the CDC come up, go down, and coming back again. And all during that time, you've always been a stand-up guy. You always made sure that your position was known. So I want to give a shout out to that. We really appreciate you, sir. In addition to that, Ms. Travis, I'll be calling you soon to have a conversation about CRA and economic development, especially in light of the new changes that are coming to the CRA by way of the feds. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. Next time we talk, we're going to talk about the West Tampa Health Initiative, how we need to change the narrative when it comes to health in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to make public comment?
Yes,
my name is Dana Wiles. I stay in the Belmont Heights area. Connie Burke is my sister, one of my sisters. The Belmont Heights area, the Gator building on the corner, the seniors don't have nowhere to go to shop. We have no kind of amenity for that area. When you ride through that area, all you see is trash. At that area, we try to pick it up, but people that come that don't live in that area drop their trash in our area. We sick or tired of that. We definitely need jobs for the young people so they'll know how to live and work in our community. I get pissed off when I see that the young people don't have no job. The seniors need help. I'm in the area where I'm at. I go check on the seniors that around me. The seniors need help. Not no over here, just a few dollars over here. We tired of the horse and pony show. We tired of y'all say y'all gonna help us and y'all don't do anything. And what really making me pissed off, that we suffering over and over again. That's all I have to say. Y'all have a God bless day.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Murphy. We're trying to figure out a PowerPoint issue, perhaps?
You just walked out.
Yes.
They're working on.
Okay. Would you like me to go on? Can we go? Oh, okay, here we are.
Am I ready to go? Okay.
Can you pull up the PowerPoint, please?
Thanks so much. Hey, folks. Good morning. My name is Thomas Murphy. I am the chair for the Central Park CAC. and I'm here to give you an update on what's going on in Central Park. So, show of hands, who's familiar with where Central Park is? Boundaries, everything, everybody knows? Okay, perfect. So I have here where our current boundaries lie. So we're gonna go up on Nebraska to right under I-4, over to Orange, down to Cass, and then up through where Tampa Park Apartments were. So a lot's going on down in that area because a lot has been demolished in the past couple decades. So here's what Google shows as that area where Central Park is. They call it South Nebraska. So a lot of folks, when I tell them where I volunteer with, they ask me, like, where is Central Park? Oh, that's where the projects were. Oh, that's where Central Park Village was. That's where Central Avenue was. The identity of this area has kind of been lost throughout the years. And if you notice, it's surrounded by a lot of really well-known areas like Ybor, Channelside, downtown, and the top arrow is supposed to be pointing towards Tampa Heights. So what does it look like today? I don't know how many of you have been down to walk down there. We actually have the smallest CRA, so the boundaries are very walkable. Put your shoes on, give me a call. I would love to walk down with any of you guys, or if you would like to take Mr. Hearns or Miss Odom's history tours. It's amazing, it really, really is. There's so much to learn. So right now, I'll give you an update on what is going on. So this is gonna be the Encore Job Training Center that was built a few years ago and has actually kind of sat vacant for a while. This is meant to help postgraduate high school students with job training and job placement. From my understanding, they're able to go there primarily in food service industry to get job placement and job training, hopefully in Ybor, so we can have a lot less as far as the travel time goes. Here, a lot of new businesses are opening up in a lot of vacant buildings. So the JB3 Dojo recently opened up on Nebraska. It's going to be right there in the middle. Definitely recommend checking that out. This has been a building that's been vacant for quite a while too. The La Satima Club just opened up in there. It's a plant-based menu and wine bar. This is interesting as well. So here on the corner of Palm and Tolliver are going to be the Palm Villa Hostels. They're actually currently for sale for $3.5 million. There are 3 buildings that consist of 13 units. So maybe something that our board suggested to look into as far as maybe affordable housing or something along those lines. So the neighborhood has been plagued with poorly maintained sidewalks. I walk this boundary a lot just because there's always so much going on down in there that I want to keep you guys abreast of what's going on, and I'm also just always wanting to know. So here's some examples of some of the sidewalks, the walkability throughout this neighborhood, and this is common throughout the entire area. Also, sections of the CRA that are in need of regular maintenance and litter cleanup. This is a very common sight to see walking down there, primarily under the overpasses. But as you'll see, a lot of houseless folks will still bag the garbage up and set it on the side, but there's just nowhere to go. Mattresses are thrown out there a lot of the times. Garbage is broken into. Couches are left under the overpasses. Here's one area that I think is really interesting. So this is if you're going down Central, you walk under the overpass. On the left-hand side where that gate is, that is Henderson Avenue, which has been blocked off for many, many years. In the research that I've done, it looks like some developers are looking to reopen that section, so we'll have a little bit more smoother walkability from neighborhood to neighborhood. So in that same breath, looking at these overpasses, they're poorly lit. This entire neighborhood has been cut off by I-4 and 275. So to go from one neighborhood to the next, more often than not, you're going to have to walk under one of these overpasses. I don't know if any of y'all have walked down there lately, but it is not a pretty sight. It's not, it's bad. In order to promote connection of the neighborhoods, they'll need to become safer walkways. So here's an example of what they've done down in Ybor to, I think, maybe prevent that a little bit. Just a suggestion that maybe we could look into that as well if we are going to be opening up Henderson Avenue to create more walkability. And also at nighttime, it's not very well lit, and I don't like being down there at night. So what was there in the past? Just a little brief history on there. This is what it looked like in Central Park in the 1860s when freed slaves were first able to occupy this territory. A lot of times multi-generation families would live in these homes that had no plumbing and had community outhouses. So this is what the area looked like back in the turn of the century. You can see in the background Meacham High School. So that shows you dirt roads. This right here is the St. James Church, which is one of the only buildings that was salvaged when Central Park Village was torn down. But you can see all of these old wood frame buildings. This history it's amazing. Here's an example of what was once down there, one of the buildings, which was the Pyramid Hotel that was located on the 1000 block of Central Avenue, and the Ladies of the Rogers dining room down there. So the community really came from nothing and built up to really be something. until the opening of Central Park Village in 1954. This is what it looked like. Until June 11th, 1967 at 6:25 p.m., when Martin Chambers was a 19-year-old teenager, was shot in the back by a police officer, and 3 days of rioting and burning of lots of businesses happened. So this is what Central Park looked like after those riots. A lot of businesses were lost. The National Guard was called in. Another example of a building that was once there is Meacham High School. This was a school that initially the CRA was promising, I believe the school board was promising to rebuild this. The school has still not been rebuilt. It's been 20 plus years. I know that the family was really, that was one of the big factors for them, that they were okay with letting that go because they were promised that this school was going to be rebuilt. Now Meacham Garden is currently on the site where the school was supposed to be built, but I haven't heard anything about the school being brought back. Here's an aerial view to give you an idea of when Central Park Village was demolished. The blue arrows pointing towards Pastor Frank's Paradise Baptist Church, which is now pink, but just to give you an idea, and then where the little brush is on the middle section, that's where the St. James Church currently stands. So here's Paradise Baptist Church, still there. Councilman Goods, you've been down there with us to see the museum. I don't know if anyone else on council has been down in that basement. It is amazing. The amount of artifacts and history that Pastor Frank has down there is fantastic, but I'll tell you, it's extremely sad because you can see right here how that door is knocked in. Rodents are going in there. The entire place smells of rat feces, rat urine. A lot of these really, really great artifacts and pieces of history are all being completely ruined because of there's no maintenance that's being done on that, and it just breaks my heart. It really does. This is going to be an example right here of the St. James Church, which is slated to actually be an African American history museum. So that's, like I said, this was one of the only buildings that was saved when they tore down all of Central Park Village. Here's another example of two of the only original remaining scrub homes on East Scott Street. And these were recently purchased by the Housing Authority. I've actually got a chance to go inside both of them. And they're not that bad. They really aren't. I think that both of them could definitely be saved. And that's, like I said, that's just one part of, the Scrubs history that's still remaining. Here's an example of some new construction, new apartments that are being built. You can see right here, this is going to be on Harrison and Central. This is going to be on Governor. Also, to update you, the Tampa Park apartments that are across the street on Nebraska are currently being demolished to make way for the Gasworks project. You can see right here the remaining buildings on the right and then the new construction on the left, promising to be delivered by 2024. You can see all of this. I had to kind of reach over with my cell phone over the chain link fence to get you guys a good shot. This is right here in Perry Harvey Park. When we first started the CRA, or the city did in 2006, this area was slated to be a band shelter that you can see right here where they've actually dropped the concrete, but nothing has ever made its way since then. And speaking with a lot of residents, that's the one thing that they were still hoping that promise would be kept up on there. Here's an example of some of the graffiti and vandalism that's been done to some of the murals in Perry Harvey Park. Talking with Mr. Hearns, he was mentioning that the folks that made these murals, who knows if they'll be able to even replace that, and from what I heard from him, it was within like weeks of that park first opening up that people were already vandalizing a lot of this history. You can see here more of the graffiti that's on some of the park. Right here is where the fountains are supposed to be going with the music right on Cass Street. This hasn't been on for quite some time either. Wow. So what's next? So the Gasworks Kansas City townhomes are slated to be built here. They are going to range from 2,100 to 2,400 square feet at a price of $705,000 to $775,000. So a far cry from what the humble beginnings it started with. More examples of the same renderings for these. Here's another one from a Miami-based developer. They have it slated to have a 369 luxury apartments with a 178 key hotel, 32,000 square feet of retail space, and a large parking podium. So this is what's slated to come in soon as well. I believe that this one, they are hoping to have, I believe, grocery at some point. Some more renderings of what's to come. This gives you an idea right here of the vacant lot and what is going to be going in that space. Here's the Muse that was purchased by the Patel Family Foundation. This is going to be also micro units, mixed-use luxury apartment development, mixed-use apartment development, market rate units, and retail space. And then lastly, this is the development that I had mentioned about connecting Harrison Street right there. This is going to be built on the other side, right by where GTE is. So on the other side of that. So we haven't had a lot of money in our budget for a long time because we haven't had a lot of activity going on. Now we have so much activity that's going on, so many millions of dollars that are coming into this neighborhood. So this is the opportunity for the CAC and for the CRA to listen to the community, to ask, what do you want to be put in here? How do you want this neighborhood to be remembered? And now we have the funds to do it. So hopefully our strategic plan, with it being upcoming, rewritten, will be able to include a lot of those. So any questions?
Yes, Board Member
Yes.
Goods.
Your CRA director for Central. What are we doing with Paradise? Are we still talking to Pastor Frank and his daughters? Where are we at?
It's confusing. So yes, Pastor Frank's daughters, I've been in contact with. From my understanding, Pastor Frank may have signed some new members onto the corporation or the LLC that Paradise is owned by in the last couple of years. So I don't know if he's trying to make a deal with them, but the communication between his daughters and myself has been fairly minimal.
What about staff? That's what I want to, staff.
Jeff Burton, Urban CRA Manager. At this time, the title is clouded because of those additional members. And until it's the point where we can actually have a conversation with all of them, that property is tied up.
So let me get this straight. So beforehand, when Mr. Frank was coming, we went down and there was nobody on this. So all of a sudden now people are on this title now? I mean.
That is the case, yes. They are on the board, and the board has the title, so they are on the title.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say we didn't try. We went down in the beginning, so I mean, I'll be gone, but I mean, we tried to get that to help.
And I'm still trying, Councilman Goods. Like I said, I'm in contact with his family members. It's a matter of trust, to be honest. I can tell you for a fact, it's about trust. And I know that Pastor Frank, with the relationship that I've had built with him over the years, has taken a long time to really gain that trust, and for his daughters to gain the trust as well. And I know that when I spoke with him about, St. James being a potential museum, he didn't even want to offer any of his items to go in there because he feels slated, and that's where it's at. So the conversations that I've had with his family were kind of ambiguous at first as to whether or not somebody else had bought it, if they wanted to currently sell it, and it was kind of a little bit of runaround. So we looked up the title on there, and we looked up on Sunbiz, and then that's how we got to figure.
And I'm glad you got involved, but I was hoping that staff would be involved in handling that business.
Councilman Goods, trust me. I'm trying to do a lot,
all right.
As a volunteer.
All right, enough said.
Yes, sir.
If I may, Deputy Administrator Elise Stromgo. For the record, Councilman, I did meet with Pastor Williams as well, and we had this entire conversation about the title, his daughters following up. So there are issues, right? And we've had this communication. It does not help us to have volunteer members going back and attempting to negotiate this stuff, right? So I respect the CACs for all the work that they do. But when staff is trying to work on items, right, it does create that level of conflict. So if there's some direction that they would like staff to take, they need to run that through their CRA manager so that we can follow up and take that action. But whatever information is discovered, whatever information that we can bring back and meet with our attorneys to discuss, that's pertinent information, and we can try to work through these processes, but it is private, these are private land matters, right? And so I do, with respect to the efforts and the presentation today, would love to be able to sit down with staff and go over where we are and to discuss these things.
I would hope we do that because, me going and visiting that place, again, my godbrother who passed away, the first time I had ever been in that church, that used to be the old Allen's Temple. My brother was utilized in that church. And so I know the history of that church. But when I go inside that church and I see the real history of what Pastor Frank has in that church, it's like, why is this stuff not somewhere to be preserved for black history, black culture? And when you look at this stuff, it's like amazing. And you're right, I would hate for this stuff to keep being destroyed, deteriorate because of mildew, mold. It's like this stuff is outstanding. And that's why I pushed and wanted staff to make sure we were aggressive on this. And I understand you tried to help out, but again, I'm hoping we, like Mr. Drumgo said, we revisit that and get with the board and get with the pastor and actually get a meeting with the board, because Mr. Pastor Frank is elderly now. So let's see who the board is and get with the board and Pastor Frank and make sure that whatever we need to do is right and just for him. That way he trusts, because he's older gentleman. He doesn't trust at times, and I can understand why he doesn't trust. So I'm hoping that Mr. Drumgo, that you and staff could get a meeting with the board of the LFC, and because I know you work hard. But I can see it frustrating to you. But again, we appreciate your efforts, but this is something that we had asked staff to really be aggressive on. But thank you again for your effort.
And I do apologize. In no way was I trying to interfere. I was doing my best to contact neighbors to get their contact information to share with Jeff and with everyone. So in no way am I trying to be a menace or a pest. It's just when we're not hearing, our CRA not hearing anything, then I basically am an effort that I said, hey, this is our last, like, I'm not going to keep bugging you about this. That's where it was coming from. It's only coming from the absolute best. There's absolutely, I want this, so much for the community as well. So I apologize for that as well, if that came across as me trying to interfere by any stretch of the means, because that's the furthest thing that I want to do.
All right, we good.
Board Member Carlson. Yeah,
On that point, could I won't make a motion, but could we just ask staff to work with Board Member Goods? He has like 2 more weeks, and these things seem to take a long time. I know that you all push hard, but I would just ask that we, because of the unique experience and background relationships that Board Member Goods has, that maybe staff could include him in the next week or 2 to meet with everybody and try to negotiate something, and then present back. The second thing, and it's the same issue with the Jackson House, by the way. I was with a group 2013, I think it was, and we were talking to Willie Robinson, and it was all the same concerns, and we were working with family and everything. It ended up in a foundation, which, in my opinion, hasn't done very much, and they don't allow the city to do anything to fix it. And besides looking at eminent domain for the land around it, we need to maybe look at eminent domain for the building itself. I know USF and History Center have been involved. Jeff Innick's people have been involved, but the reputation of the community is the foundation doesn't want to do anything to save it. And we need to do everything we can to save that building. And just for anybody watching, if it gets torn down, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's rebuilt in the same place so that nobody can expect that it'll fall down and they'll be able to develop that land. But we need to save these historic buildings, and you showed some others that maybe we should talk about. I would like to, if my aide Andrew is watching, maybe he could get your contact information, and I'd like to sit down with you and talk to you about some of these other properties. I know one developer is going to dominate all this, and I know there was a proposal to put baseball just north of this district. It sounds like that proposal's off the table, so if it is, that opens up a lot of opportunity. The money was never committed to that, but at least it takes that off the table in the negotiation process to figure out what we could do. And I think it's important to maintain some of the history and culture there, so that we can tell the stories to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much. And my aide, Kelly, sir? No. Okay, never. Okay, next.
Hello again.
Hello.
Item number 2, we have Christine Fenchie here to present on the proposal for rebricking 7th Avenue. She's with WSP, and she has a PowerPoint that we submitted for you. I also want to apologize, the PowerPoint that you just saw was not submitted, so I need to make sure that the clerk has a copy of it for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, and this one, I don't believe was submitted either, so.
It was, it's on here.
Okay, great.
This clicker?
Yeah, that's okay. Will you hit the PowerPoint, please? Thank you. It's not showing up here, but if you.
Yes, Board Member
Was,
Carlson.
was WSP hired by the CRA or by
City. Mobility.
Mobility? Okay,
Department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Excited to be here this morning to talk about the 7th Avenue. Is there it is right there. 7th Avenue rebricking feasibility study done for the Ybor CRA. If I can get this to work. The Ybor Community Advisory Committee, the CAC, partnered with the City of Tampa Mobility.
Can you please give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the
I thought I was
record.
introduced. Christine Fanchi. I'm with WSP Consulting.
Thank you.
Sorry. So the Ybor City Advisory Committee, the CAC, partnered with the City of Tampa Mobility Department to investigate the cost of rebricking 7th Avenue. This is one of their community priority actions from the Vision 2020 plan, would be from Nick Nuccio Parkway to 26th Street. The stakeholders we worked with were the CAC, of course, the Mobility Department, the Barrio Latino Commission down in Ybor. Just talking through the process, this report is just one very first initial step in a long process to get the rebricking completed. So just going through, we're going to finalize the report this month after speaking to you. Then the CAC will program funds, hopefully this month, bring it to the CRA. The CRA will be presented with that in July, then go to City Commission for approval, hopefully in August. Then they'll need to advertise for design. Design takes 6 to 9 months. That puts us to the end of this year. Then the design itself takes about 9 months. That's fall of next year. Then you, in concurrence with the Barrio Latino Commission approval, would happen during design. Then you would advertise for construction a few months, and then construction itself. So we're looking, if we were to approve funding, it would be constructed Christmas of '25. So looking at that timeline. So what do we have? We started off with what do we have in Ybor? As you can see here, we have 6 main types of Ybor brick, over 100 years old. They're all different shapes, sizes, and colors, all different embellishments. We've got the Augusta, Southern Clay, Baltimore Brick, the Grove Galima, Copeland Inglis, and the Augusta Block. And they're all unique, of course, and there's a really nice mixture. So how do we match this character to make sure that we're meeting the vision plan for the CRA? So what do we have? So in order to do the whole corridor, we estimated that we need 170,000 square feet of brick. Looking at what are alternatives to that, the intersections only would be 35,000, and then if we did 2 blocks, it would be 25. So based on the stockpile, as you can see, it's hard to estimate, but I've got some professionals that use the stockpile all the time who estimated we have about 32,000 square feet of brick available. The city just said 2 things. Make sure you save stockpile so we can use it for ongoing maintenance when we need it for repairs. And then also, we'd like to minimize the use of historic brick in crosswalks due to ADA and making sure we're meeting the disability needs and not having issues there. So these were the thoughts. So now we know unfortunately, we don't have enough Ybor brick to do the whole. So what do we do next? So we looked into the 2 alternatives. One is reclaimed, the other is replica. Pros and cons to each. Reclaimed, of course, is going and reclaiming brick from other cities or other areas that have historic roadways that they're taking out. The pro to this is that it looks the most historic, right? It looks and feels like historic brick that matches the historic nature of Ybor. Unfortunately, the con is that quantity is a lot. And so what I heard from vendors was it's going to be really hard to get 170,000 square feet from another agency in a whole. So you'd have to order separate orders and then stockpile it. So that's going to be the issue. Those might look different, feel different, and then where do you stockpile it? You know, how do we phase it? It might take longer. Opposite to that is the replica brick, where you order the brick, exactly what you want, they manufacture it, and then they deliver it to the contractor. It doesn't have to be stockpiled, and then that brick is continuous. The cost of that is a little bit less than the historic. That's another pro. The con is that it just doesn't look as historic as the reclaimed, excuse me. So these are the 2 options that we investigated. Who are the vendors? For the most part, the reclaimed vendors are Gavin, Columbia, and EBS. And the replica brick, even though there's dozens of replica brick vendors, we narrowed it down to these four: Belden, Endicott, Pine Hall, and Whitaker Greer, who are available to do the street brick that you need to take on the heavy loads. They can also make it look historic by doing some treatments to it. So these were the four that could really meet the needs of the Ybor project. Maybe. How do they make the new bricks look old? There's four ways. The bricks they make before they fire them, what they call is they rumble them to get the edges kind of look, tattered. And then they fire them, and then they tumble them after. So you can see, like in the corners of the top right picture, how the edges aren't perfect so that it looks a little bit historic. The second thing is you can use different colors. As I showed you, we have 6 different colors of Ybor brick right now. So we could use different colors like shown in the bottom left picture. Another thing is embossing or embellishing. Embossing is the bottom right picture where you can see where they stamped Tampa into the brick. And you would do this maybe in like 10% of the brick just to give it a little bit of flair. As you can see on that first slide, every Ybor brick had an embellishment on it of the maker. Like the Augusta block has the Augusta embellishment. The embellishment is raised, like the picture on the top right. This is an example from St. Augustine, Florida, where they put the date. Again, this would only be like 10% of the brick, so it wouldn't be every single brick. And then a fourth thing we thought about was maybe doing a little bit of reveal or doing a different height of brick to make it look not perfect and new and, make it look more historic. So that's another option that we looked at, and making maybe some of the bricks a little bit taller, maybe 1/8 of an inch, just a slight enough so that it would look imperfect, so it looked more historic. So these are ways we can make the replica brick look old. So what's our typical section look like? In order to do the quantities and the costs and everything, we had to understand the square footage. So right now in Ybor, you've got concrete sidewalks and curbs on both sides. You've also got a concrete parking aisle. All of that would stay in place. We would just take the center roadway, the 24 feet of driving surface basically, and take away the asphalt and re-brick it. That would require doing about 9 inches of stabilized base, 12 inches, 9 inches of the crushed concrete to make a really good foundation, then your 3-inch bricks with the sand. We also added, as you can see on the edges, an 18-inch concrete header curb. We recommend that so that you don't have any turning of the brick, making sure that everything really stays in place for the longevity of this project. So we looked at 6 alternatives to give the CRA options of cost and feasibility and what they feel is viable. The first we looked at was reclaimed brick for the whole corridor. Second, replica for the whole corridor. Third was reclaimed for inside the crosswalks with replica for the crosswalks because the city directive of using flush brick. Alternative 4 was replica brick, full intersections including crosswalks. 5 was crosswalks only. And then 6 was an alternative to try to utilize some Ybor brick. So those 2 center blocks, 15 to 17, could be the Ybor brick from the stockpile, and then do the replica for the rest. So you'd have complete brick, but you'd have that Ybor historic brick right in the center. One thing that we noticed during the investigation was that 20th Street was the only street that was a little bit unique. It has these center medians that used to be there that they took out. You can see the yellow striping is there now. So when we go to re-brick that, there's really no use in like repainting that yellow. So we thought we'd just make it right and move the curbs while we're doing some construction, widen the sidewalks, add the ADA curbs, and then put in tree wells and lighting. So all the estimates include this upgrade for 20th Street. The costs that we put together are all inclusive, just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about the whole cost. Removing, obviously, everything that needs to be there, all the excavation that we need to get that 20 inches plus of foundation right. Plus the brick costs include not only the materials, but the labor and the delivery of those bricks. Added 10% for mobilization, 15% for engineering, 8% for inspection services during construction, traffic control, obviously, as a percentage, and then contingency, we put a healthy contingency just because of the unknowns, but also because, unfortunately, we've seen so much inflation lately. We just wanted to make sure that that was a healthy contingency at 25%. So each of the costs include all of these things. And here's one of the charts that I put together. It's itemized. The CRA will have this as a tool. If anything ever changes, they can just plug and play. Just wanted to show you that we estimated everything in unit costs to come up with the dollar amounts. So where do we end up? So the 6 alternatives here are shown with the estimated costs on the right. So alternative 1 was fully reclaimed for 12, fully replica, alternative 2, 11.2. If we do reclaimed inside, replica on the crosswalks, it's 4.3, and then replica crosswalks is about 6. Replica intersections is 6, replica crosswalks only is 1.3, the least expensive because of the least square feet. And then the alternative 6 that includes the EBOR brick for 2 blocks, we estimate at 10.3. So another part of this was how do we pay for this, Christine? So what are some opportunities? So the team looked at over 80 grant opportunities in transportation and economic development. Unfortunately, most of those are for safety, for transit, and there's a lot of money for electric charging all of a sudden. So those don't apply, unfortunately, to this corridor. But we did find 3 that do have potential. The 2 best are State Historic Preservation Office grant funds. There's one called Main Street Grants. It's for design, so that would obviously be for your engineering phase. They'll match up to $50,000, dollar for dollar. And then you could also apply for the construction SHPO grant, which is up to $500,000, dollar for dollar. So you could go after both. When I talked to their office, they said they would encourage you to go after both, actually. So that's good news. The other thing was we thought that Resilient Florida has a lot of money coming in. Tampa's doing some really great work with resiliency. And so we could go after that. The only caveat is we have to make sure that we include water quality and stormwater improvements. Maybe get a little bit more creative than what's out there right now. So you might have to pay a little bit more in engineering, but you'd be able to get a larger grant. So that would be about $2 million, dollar for dollar. But we'd have to show stormwater and water quality improvements with the project. So where do we end up? We met with the CAC twice, once in October and January, went round and round, but the onus was that they really wanted the entire corridor bricked. And they really wanted it looking as historic as possible. So I come to you with 2 alternatives. Alternative 1 they really liked, and alternative 6. Alternative 1, of course, is reclaimed brick, since we don't have enough EBOR for the whole corridor to do the whole thing. Obviously, this would give the most historic feel for the corridor. Like I mentioned before, though, the issue is getting that full quantity of one type of brick. So we might have to stockpile or order the brick in phases. Alternative to that is the EBOR brick option, alternative 6, which we have enough EBOR brick to do the 2 blocks right now. And the replica brick could be ordered in one order. So this one could be done as one project. Of course, the cost would be a little bit less at the 10.3 instead of 12. And you could make it look and feel, we could make it look and feel old, as we talked about how they make the bricks look older. And so with that, I'm here for questions.
Board Member Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. That's the most in-depth presentation I've ever seen regarding rebricking the streets in Ybor. I brought this up in conversation casually at the Tropicana in Ybor when it was there, I don't know, 2015, 2016. And, you know, it's a shame that in the 1960s under the Nucio administration, in the era of urban renewal, that they pulled up all the brick and then they just put asphalt. I wish, and I can't go back in time, I wish they would have put asphalt over the brick, which we've seen in other parts of the city, and then we wouldn't have, you know, such complications and the costs, because I know you can mill asphalt and at least try to preserve what's underneath. I know that in past administrations, a lot of our bricks were sold to Winter Park. And I don't know how much Winter Park has in their stockpile. You know, I wouldn't say call them and say we ask them to buy them back, because they've used a lot. I've been out there and you see the Augusta block. You see, you don't know whether it was or not, but bricks that you see in the streets may have been bricks from Ybor City. We don't know. So we are at this point within this National Historic Landmark District, because this is within the most important corridor, which is 7th Avenue. But I've always believed in originality, you know, or the patina, or how something ages and it adds to the beauty. In this case, though, we have 30-something thousand square feet of brick in our supply, and we needed 170 or whatever thousand square feet. We have other parts of the city with brick roads, so we don't want to deplete our existing supply, because we've given a lot away, we've sold a lot. So we need to maintain that, the original stuff. However, I've never seen the comparison of original brick and then replica brick, and how they age it, and how they age, you know, the edges, and how they do the color matching and the color changes. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, if we were to do the replica route, I think what's nice is the branding. And I know it'll say, you know, Ybor City, it said 1885. I think Ybor City goes to 1886 as the actual founded year. And today's actually the anniversary of the first cigar that was rolled in Ybor City
happy
at the
anniversary.
Ignacio Ohio factory. Anyways, I like that. I like the replica brick with the branding because, again, it's the branding of Ybor City. I know it's not original, but it's convincing. It's cheaper. It's consistent all throughout, and we get that same feel. We're not going to have those granite curbs like we did because there's been updates in the 90s and early 2000s in Ybor on 7th Avenue. We're not going to have the streetcar track that ran down the middle because that was pulled up years ago. However, I think it matches or closely matches the character of the neighborhood. We have the brick look. We have easier and cheaper maintenance. We have a cheaper cost, even though you could say, well, it's just under $2 million difference, but it's an easier task to undertake. And for maintenance, for replacement in the future, we have existing manufacturers that we can buy directly from for any major issues. Another thing is stormwater improvements, I think were mentioned there regarding the matching grants. When you have brick, it's more of a pervious surface. It's not perfect, but you know, there's gaps between the bricks and allows for drainage to be a little bit easier than traditional asphalt. So thank you for this. You know, again, this is a conversation I had a long time ago, and an estimate I got was $4 or $5 million years ago. Oh, the entire city paving budget. You know, it would cost to do this. However, you know, we're in the CRA, so we can look at CRA funds. We can look at these matching grants that you talked about, and we can, you know, try to reduce the cost and the burden while maintaining this historic, very important historic character of this neighborhood. There's a movie that was done a few years ago called Live by Night. And it wasn't filmed in Ybor City. They filmed it in Brunswick, Georgia, because of film credits, and it was cheaper. And one of the biggest mistakes in that movie, when they showed Ybor City, it was dirt roads. Ybor City was dirt roads in the 1880s, you know, I believe, or even before they started bricking. So the bricks are so significant and important to the character of this neighborhood. And again, thank you very much. This is very detailed, great work. And I appreciate all that. Thank you.
Board Member Miranda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not an expert on bricks, but I was on the council when that exodus of bricks were sold to Winter Haven or Winter Garden, I forget which city it was, and we stopped that right away, no more. There's a difference in the weight of that brick. I think the original brick to the bricks that are now. I used to see one of those bricks and carry, I could hardly pick it up when I was a teenager. I mean, they weighed a lot. And I guess they were about 3.5 inches. I'm not certain. And they had a name on it. They had something on it that I don't recall what it was, but I remember something being on them. And why did they last so long? Well, we think the bricks were better. Maybe they were, but let's face reality. During that era, you had streetcars. They weren't on the bricks, they were running on the rail. You had a lot of automobiles, but not as many as we have now. And they were what? Much lighter. They had, you had to crank them up by yourself with a hand thing. That was your crank, and you didn't have automatic starters at that time. It came in the 30s and 40s, and all these things came about. So the streets were fairly well kept without maintenance to any degree, because the vehicles that were on them were much lighter. You didn't have semis coming through Ybor City like you do now, emptying their goods at the stores that are there and operating as a business. Thank God they're doing good. And these are the things that I see. So in myself, I'm thinking, have you looked somewhere else? What countries have bricks that still manufacture them? Is it Mexico? Is it Colombia? Is it Nicaragua? Is it somewhere in the country or in this world that manufacture? Because once you start buying bricks, and you only buy so many, and the next one are made later on, they might not have a same color ration. You should buy all the bricks if you can, possibly the 170,000 that you need for that. I'm not a brick expert, I don't plan to be,
But I did know the family called Kelly Brick Company. They were out of New Jersey. And you know who was his two daughters?
Who?
Elizabeth Kelly, and who was the actress name? Grace Kelly. And I had the honor of working with one of them husband. He did the same thing that I did. He judged horse racing in the state of Pennsylvania, so I used to visit them quite often, once in a while. Not often, but once in a while. And they would come here. And I remember Grace Kelly's sister. You know what she liked to eat at? The Pancake House. So we used to go to the Pancake House. So these are the things that I remember. Very nice people, very down to earth. I never asked her what kind of bricks her father manufactured. But I know there's other companies that manufacture bricks somewhere in this great country. But again, I'm not trying to ask you or anyone what to do, but I would try to get something that matches the whole thing at once. There may be production of so many, but the production mill hasn't changed, because once it changes, you're going to have color differentiation to some degree, and it will show not when you buy them, but after you install them. So that's why they lasted so long. They didn't have the weight that these bricks have. And in fact, Ybor City is one of the highest locations in the city of Tampa, elevation-wise. So if it floods here, it may not flood there. Thank God. I hope it doesn't flood anywhere. But these are the things that I remember. And I have one brick at the house. I don't know where it's from, but I remember having one brick, and I'm going to try to find it. But thank you for what you've done. Your questions and your demeanor, the way you present yourself, Christina, is very upbeat with me, and I appreciate everything you're doing. And let's continue to get this done. You can have anything you want in life, but you can't forget where you come from. All of us, not me, all of us. And what was there, and how was there, and how did the people do what we think now? We can't live without this. Well, it wasn't invented when they were there. So they were enjoying life as it was, naturally. We fake a lot of things that we buy because most of it is fake. It's not made here. It's low quality. And all these rings that I wear that look nice, they're not real. I couldn't afford the rings that I have that are real. So I'm telling you, buy the bricks that are good, even if you got to pay a couple of pennies more, because they'll last much longer. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, I think this is an important project, and I appreciate my colleagues' leadership, whoever's led on this in the past, and I know once I heard the idea, I've been pushing for it as well. Could I just ask you real fast, your company, could you tell us what your, I know you guys are worldwide, but what is some of your experience in Florida or in the United States, or maybe some other places on bricking? Do you guys have direct experience on this in other places?
So bricking is like coming back, if that makes sense. So WSP, yes, is an international engineering consulting firm, mostly civil engineering. I personally am a professional engineer in Florida. Been doing it for 23 years. Mostly complete streets work and roadway design and sidewalk walkability. But not a lot of bricking but our company has a construction wing, and so I was able to partner with them on constructability.
Are there some cities you could give me an example off the top of your head? And since you all are international, have you done like Cartagena or San Juan, or San Juan's not international, but it's...
I would have to look into that
Okay.
to answer that question, sir.
Okay, what about St. Augustine? Do you guys work on that?
We did not work on
Okay.
that, no.
The St. Augustine one, just as an example, they have parts where they've used new brick, and they made complete streets out of it. I don't know if you've seen that. And I don't think that would quite work here, but it's just another idea where one of the problems on 7th Avenue is speeding. And when the bricks are there, I think people will slow down. The other problem is sound, because they like to share their music with us all. There might be some idea embedded in that to be able to help. But the other thing that happens in St. Augustine, the city manager told me, is that tourists like to steal the bricks. So like at night, they'll go and dig them out. And so one concern I have about the branding of them is that people will just start stealing them as souvenirs. So we need to work with whoever's running the visitor center and make sure we're selling them also, so that people don't just steal them. The other thing is, one of the big developers in Ybor has his own stockpile of bricks. I don't know whether he's planning on giving them or selling them at a discount or something, but did you incorporate that into your numbers?
So I did speak to the developer pretty much about a month ago. And he mentioned that he was very in favor of the salvage bricks, to your point, and that he was kind of taking that on his own.
Yeah, he was figuring just from the place that he bought it from, the city stockpile, what he had already, and the places he bought it from, that there were enough bricks for about 10 blocks.
Excellent.
And I don't know the price of all that, but anyway, we ought to make sure we follow up on that. And then I think Guido answered one of my questions. There's no brick under the asphalt.
No, we did an investigation, and unfortunately, no.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing, as a kind of an aside, a couple years ago, I told Gene Duncan, Mayor Kreisman, when he was still mayor in St. Pete, was looking to buy a piece of equipment that would more quickly extract the asphalt from bricks because of the loss of so many bricks, and he wanted to share the cost with the city of Tampa. But I don't know if we ever did that. But if we didn't, we might want to look into it, because there could be more bricks that we're losing that we could have salvaged had we had that piece of equipment. And if we could use it for this purpose, maybe the CRA could pay for it. So maybe somebody watching, Vic, or somebody could think about that. Could you go back to your conclusion page with alternative 1 and 6? I was thinking as you went through the alternatives, first time I've seen this presentation, but those are the two that I would pick too.
Can we go back on the, I'm sorry, on the PowerPoint?
Just go back like one slide.
Is she there?
Anyway, my choices would be alternative 1 or 6. My first preference would be alternative 1, which is the historic bricks. But the second choice would be to use as many historic bricks as we can. It sounds like we've got at least 10 blocks worth, and then we could put the other ones in. The idea of using it for water storage or percolation, I think is good. I don't know how much extra that would cost, but flooding is going to continue to become a big part of what's happening in the city. And even if we just broke even with whatever grants we had, it would be a good idea to try to prevent flooding in Ybor. And then as to the branding of it, partly for the reason I mentioned, I think we ought to be really careful about how we brand it. Because if it has an Ybor logo with Ybor written on it, I think a lot more will be stolen. But also, I think that because there will be so many, it needs to be not tacky like that. And what I understand is that the city of Tampa has the patent or trademark on the Ybor City lamps. And so there could be some more subtle abstract thing like the top of the lamps or something that we could use, or maybe there's a historic name. Some of them say Augusta on them. Maybe there's some other historic Ybor name that we could use as kind of our own brand that doesn't just call it Ybor. But I would recommend doing something more subtle that doesn't look so in your face. I've been to a lot of cities with bricks, and I haven't seen anybody brand it like Deep Ellum or something like that, or Old San Juan. I don't see that logo, and I think that would feel more like Disney than something authentic. So instead of Augusta, if we had some historic name that we could use as like our brand, or we could use some abstract symbol that people who know, but it wouldn't look like something that should be in a tourist shop. And the last thing is that I think, I've said this before, but I think Ybor in 10 years or maybe 20 years is going to be the best case study in the world. I think it's going to be with all the innovation that's happening there, the creativity, the arts scene that we're working on. I think it's going to be the case study that other cities worldwide are looking at for how to not just redevelop, but how to create and develop a really thriving creative economy that steps ahead of AI and all these new technologies. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Citro.
I'll defer to Councilman.
Okay. Board Member Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Following the colleague that just spoke, Mr. Carlson, there's some things that came to mind. The new development that's going to happen there, I think it's over 50 acres from Nebraska on into Palm Avenue, and that new area is going to look beautiful. Are they going to also have brick streets? I'm just asking a question.
I'd like to ask maybe Courtney, do you know? No? Sounds like staff is not aware that that's going to be required.
Well, I'm just asking, maybe somebody should have some connection, because that's going to be considered still Ybor City, I would imagine.
Hi, Nicole Travis, Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. Yes, I have spoken to the landowner to include, if not all, some brick streets to show that there's continuity, and so that when they're doing the sidewalks, whether the sidewalks have like a brick lining, just to show that there's some kind of connection if we can't do bricks. But we have been in communication about that, and it is his intent to add some.
I know he's always 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next thing is, Mr. Carlson's considering the fact that some of the bricks may be stolen, which is a possibility. But I think we can make a deal out of that, Mr. Carlson. We make fake bricks and sell it to the souvenirs to the guests coming in, so we can pay for the new bricks that we're going to lay down. And that's how you do that kind of business. When you're raised like Mr. Goods and I, you make these kind of things when you're in the neighborhood. How do we get this done? And you remember how that was? So we used to pick up bottles for 5 cents each to sell them so we can get some for free, and that's how it was. So I'm just thinking that way, and I said, you know what, an idea just came out of Mr. Carlson's concern. I said, we'll make some bricks, a few thousand to start with, see if it goes, and when Santiago Corrada comes back and brings all these tourists into town and the streetcar's running, we sell the bricks for $10 or $12, and we make $8 and pay for the new bricks that are coming in. So you have to have that type of degree, and I know you do, not in stealing, but in selling. You're selling this opportunity to us, and we're giving you an idea how to pay for it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Board Member Citro.
Thank you very much. Can you bring back your slide of how the layout of the bricks are going to be? Perfect. They are going to be laid on the 9 inches of concrete pavement, correct?
Yeah, the crushed concrete.
Yes, ma'am, as the basis, okay. This is a wonderful project. I saw your presentation the first time at the YCDC, and it was even great then. I can't wait for this to happen. Not that I'm wanting to cut costs, but so that we can make it a little bit more affordable. And for ADA compliant at the street car, at the street crossings. Can't we lay down the, I don't want to say imitation, but the modern bricks, so that the people with ADA, whether wheelchair or walking problems, can have a smoother place to walk across the streets? That's one concept, one thought. But thank you for the presentation. Again, it's even better the second time around after it was presented at YCDC. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks for having me.
Well, hello again.
Hello.
Two things for you today. We need a motion to formally cancel the June 8th CRA meeting. It will be, you've already approved having your workshop on the June 8th meeting. Right now, we're working to lock in the Julian B. Lane River Center to have that workshop, but in order for us to take the regular scheduled meeting off the calendar, we need a motion to remove that and substitute it with them.
So I have a couple of motions. A motion to cancel the CRA meeting scheduled for June 8, 2023 at 9 a.m. and in its place scheduling a special CRA meeting and workshop for future CRA planning purposes instead on the same date, June 8, 2023 at 9 a.m. This special CRA meeting will be held at the River Center at Julian B. Lane Park, pending confirming the location securing the location as you mentioned.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Miranda. Any conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
And also, so in our search for an economic development director, we've been doing some interviews, and Mr. Drumgo and I have interviewed a candidate that we think would be better than suitable. Pretty awesome to be our CRA director. So I'm asking for your express authorization right now to move forward with that hire. We've extended an opportunity for you to meet the person, and I would like for you to just give me the authorization to move forward with that, please. Thank you.
I have a motion by Board Member Carlson.
And second for discussion, you're asking, I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, seconded by Board Member Maniscalco. More discussion.
This is you want a motion to approve the hiring of this individual?
The motion for you to give me the authorization to hire your CRA director.
Okay, thank you. Second, yes.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Board Member Goods.
I'm gonna support it. I met the young lady, Mr. Drumgo and Ms. Travis seem very high on this individual. Again, I had asked Mr. Drumgo kind of to give a little background to the community so we'll know why this process is not like the other process. And also the individual in question that they're looking for this vote was in that process, but was lacking one thing that you thought, but now looking back what we need, you feel that the person. So if you can just give that so the community is knowing why we're moving forward this quickly without the process we had last time. I think that's fair before the vote is taken.
My apologies. I typically don't come up on side of her on the microphone, but Deputy Administrator Lee Strumgo, Development and Economic Opportunity. As you mentioned, Councilman, the candidate was actually in the previous pool when we did the search for the CRA director, and you all had some very clear criteria for us on what you wanted. And so one of those criteria was an FRA, or the FRA, the Florida Redevelopment Association certification. And so that placed her at the top of your next level of candidates that do not have that certification or that level of experience. But the candidate has all the other ingredients that you all are looking for. And so when you talk about the community development, the work in the community and leading programs and projects, and then also managing staff and managing through change in the plans that we have in place. So really that candidate was in the pool, so it's not, it's not an outside process or separate and apart from. That candidate was also in the pool for Economic Development Director, and so for us, it's just a level of fit and where we can maximize the talent and the potential, and so we have an opportunity to bring that person in. You know, at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who say that they are public servants. They want to be public servants, but they don't understand the things that come with that, nor do they take into consideration the level of follow-up that needs to happen with the public. And so for me, in going through this process and bringing this person forward, it was ensuring that we're going to have that level of follow-up and engagement that you all are seeking and that the public will want on the back end. So you can't really teach grit. You can't teach that core part of public service. And so that's what we're bringing forward for you.
Just one last thing, so
Yes, sir.
the public can know this person that you're bringing forward, a little bit of their background. I think that'll be interesting for the public to know where this person is coming from.
Sure.
And I think that'll give a little light on maybe some of the decisions you've made.
Yeah, she has experience working with University Area CDC in operations and facilities. So she's managed projects from construction management to parks implementation in terms of also grant writing and just general community development. So, all of the ingredients without having the FRA certification. Over a decade of experience in the work and really committed and passionate to contributing and doing work in disadvantaged communities.
I believe this person is the number 2 person within that university area program, is that correct?
That is accurate. Yes, they've been wildly successful in their work up in that area, and so our goal is to bring some of that energy here and to get another set of hands on deck so that we can work through all the changes and the realignment that this board has asked for.
And the reason I asked for that information for the public to know, I'm familiar with the university area and what they're doing and how they're growing and how their CDC is working up there, and the director who's actually been running that program up there. So that's why when I asked the tough questions on the other day when I interviewed with the young lady, I wanted to make sure this person had what I call tough skin with some of the CRAs that you have to deal with. And coming from that area up there, you have to have a little tough skin.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, they want to look important and wear the suits and do the job and be seen out in public in that regard. And it's very clear that we are coming to roll up our sleeves and get into this work. Thank you.
Board Member Carlson. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Travis. Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, that organization is very impressive. The number 1 person there is one of the most outstanding economic development people in the region.
Yeah.
This is the number 2 person, so we can't get the number 1 person. But it sounds like the number 2 person has really helped a lot with what's happened there. And to a few of the comments that came up before, if I had a choice between a really good person who knows how to build community and someone who has a FRA, whatever, I would rather have the person who knows how to build community. And we get invited to go to these FRA, whatever it's called, meetings. And I've sat in a couple of them, but I don't care what other cities in Florida are doing, because I don't want to follow other cities in Florida. I want to leapfrog ahead of them and do better things. And that's why I always ask Morris, like, what can we do within the law? Because we should be looking at best practices worldwide for building community, and then figure out within the law what we can do within CRA. We shouldn't be copying what other cities are doing. Most cities are focusing on real estate. And I think as Board Member Goods was just talking, I realized when you say CRA, this is a problem with the initials. People forget what it means. But the first word is community. And I think what most people do, including this city until 4 years ago, is focus on the redevelopment part. And they think redevelopment means real estate. And sure, there are certain infrastructure things that we can have to spend the money on, but that doesn't mean that the focus or goal should be the edifice complex. It needs to be, how do we build a sense of community? And that's what they've done in the university area. In the university area CDC, they've gone so far as to not only understand the community, but look at the subcultures. Like, there are people from different parts of Mexico who speak indigenous languages, and they've developed programs around the indigenous languages there to work with them. And so if we have people on our team who understand that, then they should understand the nuances of Ybor City and East Tampa and the other complex communities that we have. The other thing is that this area, University CDC, focuses on results. They're a nonprofit, so they have to focus on results. They live or die by the donations they get. They have to get results. Sometimes we're accused of being too bureaucratic, and as we see, things take forever to do, even with good staff like Nicole. And so we need somebody who's used to bootstrapping and getting things done. We need somebody who's results-oriented, somebody who knows how to run an organization with not enough resources, and how to use money effectively. Money is not unlimited, and even though the city is giving these districts the gift of this additional money that they don't get the benefit of, we need to be good custodians of it. We need somebody who knows the value of a dollar and really focuses on it. So, and the most important thing is that Elise and Nicole are recommending this person. So, with their recommendation and the background and the interview, I would support this. Thank you.
Board Member Vieira.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And I'll enthusiastically vote yes. I met on Tuesday, and I was very impressed. A very wonderful individual, and has been said before, her involvement with the UACDC, such an amazing organization, is second to none, and I think she's going to do a great job. She seems very knowledgeable, very idealistic, etc. And it's, with the UACDC, you talk about an organization and an effort that is, we're all in public service. And imagine if any one of us, created something like the UACDC. I always think about Victor Crisp and the amazing work he's done there. I mean, to have that be a legacy, just, our hats off for that and the great work the UACDC does. But to have this individual here, I think is going to be great, and I think she's going to do a great job. And I know we're all going to be partnering with her to support this endeavor. So I'm proud to be yes.
Board Member Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. Real quick, I met the candidate the other day with Elise, and very impressive resume. I looked it over a few times. Here from Tampa, knows the community, working with great organizations, as have already been mentioned. I think she would be a wonderful addition, and because there's a lot of work to do. So, hit the ground running. This person knows how to do it. Working with both of you and everybody else, I think we have a very bright future ahead, especially with all the things that we're going to tackle. Thank you.
Yes, Board Member Good.
I know that I want to make sure that we keep it moving. I know you've already started what you call the operation structure. are we looking at putting that in play before this hire, or is that gonna be put in place during that process? I know you wanna make sure that.
Concurrently, we're gonna do it concurrently. The labor market and your public meeting and public discussion doesn't allow for me to wait to make this hire. I need to make the hire now. And so this restructuring is, you've put it, this CRA board, you've trusted us, we've done the work, you've done a lot of heavy lifting and having hard conversations to put this restructure in play, but it's not gonna be finished and set until like 18 months. And so we need to go ahead and make the hire now. We made the candidate very aware of the restructure and the vision of this board and how to move that. So we're gonna make that offer soon, and hopefully she'll accept the position, but the restructure is continuing.
I think the restructuring is key for the movement, especially for the east side.
Yep.
Bringing everybody in, those ideas are all there versus silos.
Yeah. No, that's 100% moving forward. We're moving forward with that. And so just as an aside, like when I did the presentation, you guys voted to approve adding certain positions. We're looking at all of that restructure. We're putting that in place. We'll talk a little bit about it. I'll talk a little bit about it under the services agreement, but it's all in play. I just want to say, Mr. Drumgo said that it's hard to find people. You can't teach grit. And when we used to work together before, we had a saying in our CRA office that grit don't quit. And so you have to be hungry to be in redevelopment. You have to want to do the work. And it was our motto. We had it up on our boards in our office that grit don't quit. Sometimes it takes 2 years to get an easement. You celebrate that. And sometimes you have hard community meetings, but you have good outcomes from that. So
You've always heard me say that word. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
You gotta
And
be
so
hungry.
we believe that the candidate that I'm asking you to allow me to hire has the grit and the hunger to get in this work with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
I had the pleasure of meeting her and talking to her, I think a couple weeks ago, and it was a really great conversation because I came in with, we were very honest with the conversation, and I really loved that she had a phenomenal answer for every question I had, and there was no fear. And she seems ready to get started, which is incredibly exciting. So thank you so much. We have a motion on the floor from Board Member Carlson, seconded from Board Member Maniscalco. Any further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Herzog?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Mr. Drumgo and I sincerely thank you for that support. Next up, we have the staff monthly CRA activities report. There should be a PowerPoint presentation for that. And I think Mr. Burton might be up first.
Can I ask?
Board Member Carlson.
Can I ask one more question related to the decision we just made? Let's say this person comes on in 30 days or something. Does that mean that you and Elise are not involved at that point, or do you phase out, or what?
What's the plan?
Are you just going to drop us and run?
Yeah, man, it's a hot drop and roll.
Since you have 5 jobs.
No, we're in this, right? We've already set, you've been very clear on the restructure that you want to do. And any candidate that we were new hire that we were going to bring in, we can't reasonably expect them to implement those changes. So Mr. Drumgo and I will continue to work alongside the CRA director to implement the change, but also to make sure that the CRA is functioning and operating in the direction that you have provided. And so this position would report to you as a CRA board, but it also would be reporting to Mr. Drumgo. So our finger is on the pulse. We're not leaving at all. You'll continue to see us and can call us for anything.
And if I could just add, my colleagues know 4 years ago I was concerned about the independence of the CRA, and we set it up to be more independent, and the mayor administration worked with us to do that. But then when you two took over on an interim basis, I was very concerned that we would lose our independence. And I just want to thank you all and the mayor and the administration for enabling you to wear multiple hats and to continue to be independent. None of the decisions we've made have been adverse to the administration, but you've also shown that you are willing to listen to us in the community and get things done. And I appreciate everyone's independence in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Jeff?
All right, one slide for all four. Jeff Burton, Urban CRA Manager. For the Channel District and the downtown, we have the Riverwalk Beneficial Bridge Study, which you're going to vote on today. That's a joint partnership to look at the intersection of those two. Just to let you know, Channel District will carry the weight of that because the bridge itself is in the Channel District, but the landing on the downtown side is in the downtown CRA. Downtown redevelopment plan update. We learned this last month that it will be completed no later than 2024. This is the update to your older CRA plan for the downtown. We're in the process of that. There'll be a number of meetings happening with stakeholders and public meetings to discuss different types of redevelopment that we can do that are currently not in that CRA plan. Washington Street Park redevelopment, this is a Channel District project, and we are currently in community engagement. It's moving forward right now. We were at a standstill, had some conflicts with getting it started, but luckily we have a really great consultant, and Parks and Recreation has come through in a big way to help us with that. At the last CAC meeting, we agreed to move forward with the public engagement on that. St. James Church Bell Historic Preservation. This is Central Park and the Tampa Housing Authority. The Tampa Housing Authority has actually found the original bell that was in Central Avenue for the St. James Church. It's being restored to a point. They're going to keep it looking historic. It's not going to be brought back all shiny and new. We want to work with them to make that bell present. Once it's in place, it will not be rung again, but we're asking that one last time we actually ring the bell and record it so that we have that for preservation. Hillsborough River stormwater pretreatment. This is a Tampa Heights riverfront project. It's actually in the plan that we can do something like this. And this is to pre-treat stormwater that's coming down Florida Avenue and entering the Hillsborough River at the Eulalie. And this will be something that we'll be bringing back in the future. We'll be working with purchasing to work that process so that it's done according to city policies. And that is the Urban CRA report. Any questions?
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, I would like to, I just thought of this as you were presenting, but if you're going through almost more than a year-long process on the downtown CRA, I would like to have included in the options, instead of just asking people for what are all the goodies that we can spend money on, I would like to ask as two alternatives. One, reducing the amount by 25%, another by reducing it by 50% to return that to the general fund so that we can spend it in other areas. So if I could see how it goes, I would just make a motion to ask that in that process that among the other alternatives that they present, two alternatives, one would be to reduce the amount by 25%, and the second one would be to reduce it by 50%, so that we can get input from the public in those public meetings.
I have a motion by Board Member Carlson.
Question.
I have to have a second.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, second by Board Member Maniscalco. Board Member Goos.
Mr. Massey, what will be the rules or implications by doing that? Because I think there's certain guidelines, if I'm not mistaken. So how would that work if that was to happen? One, and looking at the projects that are on deck right now, how does that plan out if you actually drop that money down? How would that work? Maybe Mr.
Part of this, if the CRA would want to move in that direction, one of the chief things we would have to do is look at our present commitments. We have a number of very costly agreements and improvements that we've agreed to that are coming out of the downtown CRA, including $25 million to the Straz, I think $16 million to the to the Convention Center. We've got the Museum of Art's going to be asking for a sizable sum, $14 million for the Tampa Theater, $2.5 million for Tampa Union Station. There could be also an ask coming on potentially for physical improvements that are related to the streetcar extension or a circulator system in downtown. All those sorts of things are things that could potentially be coming before you all. So that needs to be balanced, and we've had to think through all of that. And obviously, if we reduce the increment that goes into the downtown CRA, that limits. I mean, first of all, we have to account for what we've already agreed to provide in agreements with other developers or for these cultural institutions. And so we'd have to determine how we, if we all wanted to pull back on the increment, we'd have to figure out how we would plan that, because we couldn't just do that overnight. Then legally, we'd have to amend the community redevelopment plan, which we're going to do anyway, and so that would be part of this. We'd also have to amend our interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County, because under the interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County, we've agreed to pay 95% of the tax increment that the city receives into the downtown TIP fund. So those are the steps generally.
So it's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
So just so to agree with that, we've been asked to put together a 10-year budget for all the CRAs. And if that were something that the board wanted to do, we actually have the projections that we need to show all of these expenditures and where they end up. So it could be, if that's what the board wishes, it just wouldn't happen immediately because until after some of these other payments are paid out.
Okay, Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, just to follow on that, I brought this up a couple years ago, but the good thing about this is that we're going to the public, we're spending a year asking the public what they think. And so all this motion is to ask the public, what do you think about these ideas? Of course, we have to keep all of our financial obligations. And then the other thing that would be brought up, that was brought up last time as well, once it goes in the general fund, would we lose the county money? We can negotiate a different interlocal agreement with the county. And all those things are possible. And we could also, sitting at city council then, set up a special fund. We could set up a pothole fund, a road repair fund. We could set up a parks fund. We could set up a affordable housing fund. But the problem is that people throughout the city are complaining every day that potholes aren't getting filled, parks are falling apart, there's not enough affordable housing, all these problems, basic problems we can't fix. But now we're going to go to a group in downtown and say, the rest of the city is subsidizing you, but now we're going to let you write a goodie list that you're going to spend for the next 10 years. And the rest of the city is saying, we don't want our taxes to be increased, but we want you to fulfill these basic services. And so I think it's worth at least asking the public, now that this way we don't have to pay for a separate public process. It would be worth asking the public what they think. And at the end of it, probably the people in downtown are going to say no, but it's worth a discussion, because if we just, at least by including these, we'll get people to think about the fact that other parts of the city have parks that are falling apart and they have potholes because we're spending this money in downtown. And so hopefully they'll be careful about what they propose spending the money on, because it's not just a list of goodies that they get to spend their own money on. The rest of the city is subsidizing it. Thank you.
Board Member Miranda.
Thank you very much. I appreciate anything that comes up in that the discussion and to look at where it is, but I believe that what the administration, not the administration, what the individuals that run the CRA and the attorney who sits here representing the CRA and ourselves, without having a fact figure in front of us of what the expenditures are, what we promoted and promised was going to happen, that money's already tied up. And for us to, and I'm not opposed to asking the public for anything, I don't want to get something that, look what Miranda said, look at the whole thing. For us to do this, we might have some complications into meeting the needs that you've already said you were going to do, and the payments and what's left over. I don't know all those answers. So I would rather have a discussion between the CRA board, that's us, and the individuals here representing what they do so well in the CRA area, and the attorneys to tell us what you can do and can't do. Because the CRAs are something that are very controlled by state statute. You have the county involved, you have other entities involved, and for us to say we're going to do something to help something which is needed, but that's up to us to find it when we sit as city council to find that money within the budget to do that. We committed for a 30-year something and something time within wherever that period ends. I really don't know today. I know it was 30 years. So I'm not going to say it's tomorrow or the next year, but 15, 10 years, 20 years down the line. When you make a commitment like that, no matter if this council made it or prior councils made it or future councils are going to make it, you have a legal obligation to meet the needs of what you signed. And when you get involved in things that we don't know what the outcome is going to be, you're risking not only the funds of the CRA, but the funds of the general fund. If someone files a suit, and I'm not afraid to go to court, but if that suit tells us that we're wrong and we can't do everything that you wanted to do, we're going to have a problem that we can't solve. So I'm just trying to understand what the direction is that we're going, because we did sign an agreement. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe we signed an agreement with the CRAs, Hillsborough County, and others involved to do what we said we were going to do, and we're doing exactly what we said we were going to do.
Can I replace my motion with a different one?
Still, Board Member Citro?
I will wait. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Board Member Goods?
No, my only concern is, I mean, I see Mr. Carlson is going because downtown is, they done what I believe they needed to do. But I think the obligations, like I said, we've got money out for the Strass, the museum and the convention center, and the Tampa Theater is asking a bunch of money. Now, I'm not worried about anybody coming after them now, but if you're gonna stop it, you gotta make sure we can fulfill those obligations of those 4 or 5 individuals already before you talk about ending it, or potentially more. Some people are still saying they want to come to ask for some things in the future. So you have to look at, hey, do you say these are the obligations, we cut it off with these 5 individuals that we've already committed, take on no more and look at that. But again, it's going to take them to be able to come back to tell you the information and legally say what we can, what we can't do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the surface, downtown is beautiful. And the downtown CRA has done an excellent job. But there is more to downtown than what people see. And as a matter of fact, there are parts, Zack Street North, that are in desperate need of help. And they're also infringing on other neighborhoods that have CRAs. I'm going to make a motion later that I would like to actually see the downtown CRA extended up to Martin Luther King, including Nebraska, Florida, and Tampa streets, which are in desperate need of help for economic development, both in business and residential. So as much as I would like to say that the downtown CRA is no longer needed, there are parts going further north that are in the urban core and which are going to become the new downtown area. If we would look to our friends over at the county to repave their roads, our constituents wouldn't complain as much. We only have 19% of the streets within the city limit of Tampa that belong to the city. Armenia, Howard, Kennedy, Columbus, Bayshore. People complain about those repaving. They don't belong to the city. They belong to the county. If our friends at the county would repave those streets, we would have a lot off our plate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Board Member Vieira.
May I hear the amended motion?
Okay.
If I may, thank you.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, I would just like, I don't know what the technical method is, but I'd like to replace the original motion with a motion to ask staff to come back in the July CRA meeting to propose an option to reduce the CRA funding in the downtown CRA district that could be discussed for the purposes of potentially providing an alternative for the public engagement discussions for the CRA plan.
Second.
So the idea here is that instead of saying now, we're going to put two options on now, say, because of course we have to include everything that's already promised, but this would give you all, everybody time to give the CRA staff input, and then they can come back and say, well, here's an option, and we could still vote on it at that time whether we want it or not. If we want it, all we would be voting on at that time is to ask them to put it into the public engagement process. We wouldn't be voting to end it.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a second. Board Member Miranda.
I don't know if I can support that or not. We signed an agreement with various, I think there's 8 of them. And I need legal to tell us before we start poking around, see what we can do and not do, to lay the guidelines so we don't hit that slippery slope and find out that we can't do what we want to do and be embarrassed again. So I like the legal department, Mr. Massey, who is the attorney for the CRA, to gather the information that we spoke about and to put it into legal context of what we can and cannot do with that program that we signed on for years to come. And if not, I'm not going to support any motion unless the legal department tells us that here's what you can do and here's what you cannot do. Not what we want to do, but what legally can we do with the agreements that we signed on.
Mr. Miranda, if you all want to reduce the amount of the city contribution into the downtown CRA, there is a means to legally do it, but there are a number of steps that you would have to go through in order to do that, including revising our agreement with the county. Just so you all are aware, the county does not contribute any of their TIF to the downtown. So any projects in the downtown are supported solely from the city's TIF. So the county may not care so much that we're reducing it, except if it impacts any of our obligations that are with the county. The one that I can think of that we still have, I think, outstanding is the agreement we have relative to the Water Street development, where the county's agreed to fund 50% of the infrastructure improvements up to a certain amount, and we've agreed through the CRA to fund 50% of the infrastructure improvements related to that project through the CRA funding. So that would be one thing that they may be concerned with. But I think part of all this, if you all wanted to go down this route, is that we would have to study what those obligations are, and we would have to come up with a plan to reduce that. And that would have to be presented and go to the county. We'd have to negotiate the agreement with the county to see if they would approve it. And there would be a process to amend the plan. That would be how we would go about doing it legally. So.
Okay, Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so, this came up a couple of years ago in the form of capping the downtown CRA. My recollection is the channel side plan failed in terms of sunsetting it. Capping it past 4 to 3. I don't know what happened after that. And I recall I supported that, looking at capping the downtown CRA. I've always been open to some modifications, but while looking at what the unintended consequences of it are, Councilman Miranda wisely brings up the fact and the idea that we make certain commitments for however long, and we want to make sure that we know. I have no problem with having a discussion on the feasibility of it, like Councilman Miranda said, of what Councilman Carlson is talking about, the feasibility of it, what the landmines are, et cetera. I wonder if the hurdles or the roadblocks in the way of it would outweigh the benefits of it. And then there's obviously our obligations. I mean, a lot of things were talked about, the Tampa Museum of Art, the Straz Center one that I think is going to take up 40% of the CRA downtown budget, at least in projections when this was passed by the CRA body about a year ago or so. in year 5, that's going to take up a lot. So the issue is, by putting this forward right now, what benefit are we going to get out of it with all these obligations, and then what detriment are we going to have to go through the procedure of actually going through it? And again, I speak out of complete ignorance. Money lost, et cetera. I don't know at this time. So in terms of something, on looking at feasibility, legal consequences of it, I'm fine with that, but we have to know in terms of the many commitments that we made as a body here, and what's going to be the feasibility of going through all these steps, and then for what if most of our budget's already committed in the downtown CRA? So that, again, just good questions. Maybe we could have as a motion to look at feasibility for a more robust discussion on this, to talk about the numbers, the consequences. I'm glad to support that. I have no problem with that if it's tailored in that regard.
Okay, we have a motion from Board Member Carlson, seconded by Board Member Maniscalco. Any more discussion?
And may I, if I may, to ask Councilman Carlson, so could you, and I apologize, because I know you already you kind of redid the motion, so to speak. So is this more so as a feasibility, looking for like a legal feasibility of it, or just to make sure I know what I'm talking? Because again, I'm open to talking about it. I just don't want to. I'm open to, talking about maybe, again, just looking at the idea. But going ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't remember all the words, but the idea is to, I think in July, we're going to talk about the budget for the CRA. And so it would just be to ask staff between now and then to look at the legal and financial ramifications, the contracts, and talk to you all and come back with a proposal. And we would not act on the proposal right away. All we would do is, if we like the proposal, then we would ask the staff to insert that proposal as one alternative into the public engagement discussion that's happening on the downtown plan. And so the downtown plan will take months. And so sometime in 2024, when they come back with a public engagement, then we can decide what we want to do then. We wouldn't decide in July whether we want to go forward with it or not. It would just be for the staff to create a model or an option that could be discussed in the public engagement process.
Board Member Miranda.
And this will be my last conversation, and I apologize again for taking so much time on it, but in order for me to vote for anything, you have to go back in history and find out what we did in the past so we can find out where we're going into the future. And if I recall, like the astute council member Vieira just said, some of this money's been committed for the next long time already. You mentioned the convention center, you mentioned the stress center, you mentioned other things, the museum. We committed to those things months ago. What are we going to tell them now? We changed our mind in a way, because I don't know what the numbers are. I know it was big numbers, but for me to digest something and not remember the total package then would not be the best way for myself or the constituents that we represent to say I did this without knowing what the numbers are and without understanding what commitments we have laid out for the extension of the funds that we have to make sure that this year continues to grow. And let's go back in history. What is there was no CRA 20 years ago? We won't be discussing it today. You still have the same roads that wouldn't be paved more than likely. We have 191 parks, 92 civics. We have, I think, 12 swimming pools that we take care of. And there's more and more and more on that we addressed. So these are the things that I'm looking forward to make sure that a comprehensive study, not only of this, but what we said we were going to do in the whole city of Tampa, that we understand where we're at, that we understand what the costs are, and we understand where the funding is coming from on all these items. I don't run my household this way, and I shouldn't run the city this way either. You have to know what your expenses are, what your incomes are, and how long you're going to live to pay for them. And the CRAs have a lifespan, a beginning, and they have an end. And my grandmother used to tell me, when all of us are born, you have an expiration date. We just don't know when it is. And she was right. But the CRA we know what the expiration date is. So these are the things, and I'm not subject to not making a change. What I'm looking at is I'm not gonna just go hunting for a bear when I really should go fishing for fish. That doesn't make sense, neither does this. Thank you very much.
Okay, Board Member Goods.
I mean, I like I like the idea of exploring and looking. There's nothing wrong with that, but a proposal to come back, I think that's kind of pushing it just a little bit. But I agree. Let's look at what the commitments are, what the legalities are, how much we owe, how much we got to pay people. I totally agree with that, and I can support that. But the proposal part is kind of hard for me to bring a proposal back to cut it. But I think the feasibility of studying it, what we owe, who we don't owe, and looking at down the road what 25% would look like, making sure we could pay the bills, I think is more accommodating versus just bringing back a strong proposal, in my opinion.
Board Member Vieira.
Thank you, and Councilman Goods I had those same thoughts. What I wrote down was not comfortable with the proposal, but yes to process, consequences, and feasibility. So kind of on board there.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, just the proposal I made, the motion I made included looking at all those things that you all just said. So, and you all will have a chance to give input to them, to the staff in the meantime, and tell them what you like and don't like. They can't tell us outside of meetings what you all like and don't like, but you can give them input on it. But they, of course, they have to look at all the financial obligations, everything. And in case some staff person has already called the Business Journal to say I'm against downtown, I'm not against downtown. This is, we spend a lot of money downtown, and we have made huge investments in the last couple of years. This proposal, if we took 25%, this money is growing exponentially. If we took 25%, we still would have more in the other 75% than we've ever had to spend in downtown, and we could continue to invest in downtown. But economic development these days is not about downtowns. It's about neighborhoods. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is that we have people worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that have quietly moved into our neighborhoods, and they're running multi-billion-dollar operations out of their neighborhoods, and they're disgusted that their parks are falling apart and that there are potholes in their streets, and they're disgusted that people don't have affordable housing to live in. And they're telling their friends wherever they came from that there are these problems. And so that is what's going to hurt economic development in our community. We need to look at modern economic development, and that includes all of our neighborhoods. And by the way, if we decide to move 25%, unless we allocate it as a city council, we can always decide to spend that in downtown anyway. I always say CRAs are for lazy policymakers because we have discretion over how we spend the money. Why should we be forced to spend it in one area, especially when there's no slum and blight? Clearly, downtown would not qualify today as a CRA based on the current conditions. But this was just discussing taking a small amount out and then spending months asking the public for feedback on it. And then at the end of that, in 2024, we can make a decision as to what we want to do.
Board Member Maniscalco.
I think that's the key word. We heard proposal, but I just heard discussion. I look at it as we're having a discussion. We're not taking any official action to do anything. We're just looking at the data and going from there. So my second will still stand.
Board Member Miranda.
All I can say is the data is going to be the same whether we ask for it today or in July. So why don't we just ask for the data? Because earlier in the meeting I said that there's 4 districts in the city, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that comprise the whole city. That I was going to ask the administration to give us a complete review aside from this here, which this is CRA, to put the amount of monies that the city has put in 4 little districts that compose the big city of Tampa. They're not little anymore, but there's 4 districts that equals the composed numbers of District 1, 2, and 3. And I said that earlier. So that alone would tell you how much money we put into the 4 districts. You would have an idea of where you're going and where you're coming from. But when you start doing with this is not proposed today. This has been proposed year after year after year after year, the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm not afraid to say I haven't gotten reelected. Some of you have, and God bless you. But I'm not going to take a whooping just because I want to get elected. I stand by my ground, and what I'm saying is I don't act on nothing. I guess I have all the facts, and I do not have the facts today. I have ideas that are there that have not been reduced to numbers. I do not do anything unless I have the numbers, and I don't have the numbers today. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Board Member,
On that note, Mr. Randall said he's gonna make a motion tonight about that, but I hope within your motion, you talk about the 4 districts, but within each district, there are certain pockets that are growing versus other pockets that are not growing. So that needs to be included of, you have the 4 districts, but within those districts, what areas within those districts have grown and those that have not grown?
I understand.
Yeah, that's very, very key. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
okay. We have a motion. Yes, Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. And again, I'm fine for looking at process, consequences, foreseeability, looking at a proposal, especially for 25%, when, we've committed all these funds. And again, my recollection is, I could be wrong, so please, is that in the final, it was at least projected in the final year for STRAS, it would be 35 to 40%. That's my recollection. I could be wrong. You put that all together, we're asking staff to take up valuable time for a formal proposal that may not give the dividends, you know what I mean, that we're talking about. So again, I would vote for this if it was process, consequences, and feasibility, just putting that out there. Because again, Councilman Carlson's been working this issue for a lot of years, and I salute the vigor on that.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, and I think everything you all said is what I'm asking in the motion. We're not making a decision on this today. We're asking the staff to come back in July and present their analysis of it and make a suggestion or proposal, whatever you want to call it, on what might be feasible. And if we decide at that point that we want to put it into the public comment discussion, then it will spend months getting public comment, and then in 2024 we can decide whether we want to do something or not. So we're not deciding on this today. We're not even going to decide on it in July. We're just asking for information. Thank you.
I hate to say this, but that wasn't the original motion. The original motion was something, maybe I heard wrong, about 25% of something. And now it's, just look at it.
I canceled the original motion. I changed it.
Oh, you did.
Can we have a read?
So you want me to read?
Can you please reread the motion?
What I understood was ask staff to come back in July CRA meeting, which is gonna be July 20th, to propose an option to reduce CRA funding in the downtown, up to that.
Can I just,
He did say propose.
you want me to just restate it simply? Ask staff to analyze the possibility of creating an option to reduce the downtown CRA money by 25%, and bring that analysis back at the July CRA meeting for discussion. And if approved at that time, that option would be added to the downtown redevelopment plan process to get public input on it so that we can get a response from the public in 2024.
Do you still second?
That's second.
Okay.
It's a
Yes.
discussion, it's not a formal action.
I would like the substitute motion on the floor then. I would like for staff, if I may, Madam Chair, to come back in July, like Mr. Carlson asked, to bring us the numbers that we have committed for the years to come when this council voted for various things within the district for their enhancement to the area and for the future that we did, because we made some advancement, like Mr. Vieira called, the convention center, the STRAS, the aquarium, maybe not the aquarium yet, but I'm sure they're going to ask, there's so many that we funded that we said we were going to, the Children's Museum and the museum across the street from
I've
the
said like
STRAS.
4 times that's already included in my motion. I don't
Yeah,
understand
but
what the confusion
you
is.
put that 25%, and I'm just saying that 25% came back, and all I'm asking them to do is to tell us the amount of money that we have committed And if you have a numbers, and you know numbers better than I do, what the numbers are and what we committed, and how much we're going to have coming in, we can project all that, sir, to make sure that we not cutting ourselves of what we committed to do.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Thank
Board
you.
Member Viera.
And maybe this is the mediator in me, but I kind of see the motions the same, except for you take out that 25%.
Correct.
And so maybe if that 25% were taken out, we get a 7-0 vote. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's not, the purpose is to do the analysis and then talk to us about the possibility of reducing it. The whole point of it is to figure out how to reduce it. And I originally said 25 or 50%, I changed it just to 25%. So, I don't know what happens with Robert's rules now. If the substitute motion stands, then I'll make another motion after that and see if it goes up or down. But I think we have a, we have a responsibility to the community to be good custodians of their money, and asking the downtown residents over the next 6 months what they want to spend this money on without the possibility of reducing it, I think is irresponsible and reckless, because it's not their money, it's the rest of the city's money that they're investing in downtown. And the rest of the city, we have to keep all of our commitments. Everything that we've committed, we've already agreed to do all of that. But any handshake agreements that are out there, we don't have to commit, and nothing is approved unless City Council and the CRA board and the mayor approve it. And so what we need to do is look at how do we resolve these issues in the community. The people in the community are not happy that their roads have potholes all in them. They're not happy that there aren't enough police officers. They're not happy that there aren't enough fire rescue vehicles. Our choices, we're going to raise taxes or we're going to find money somewhere else. All this is asking is that we do the research to put something together so that we can get feedback on it. And then if we approve it in July, we'll get feedback from the public. I don't see what's wrong with that. We're not making a decision to cut it now.
Mr. Burton, I have one question for you.
Yes.
When does this public information gathering session begin? Has it already begun?
No, they're setting the dates right now.
Okay, so are they expected to begin within this time period that we could get this done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Citro.
Mr. Burton, just for the public's knowledge, how far north does the downtown CRA go?
It goes to the south side of 275. It stops.
I already have my own opinion, but I'm asking your opinion. From, let's say, Zach Street to 275 South, is there still slum and blight?
According to the textbook definition in 163 Part 3, yes.
Is it still in need of economic development, in your opinion?
If it's blight, it's in need of community redevelopment, which could be different than economic development.
Thank you. The Greyhound bus station is just, I believe, is changing hands or has just changed hands, and there's supposed to be some development in there. The Verizon building has also changed hands in there. We're going as far east, downtown goes as far east as Union Station, further?
That's at the boundary is Union Station to the northeast, and then it goes to, follows Meridian all the way down to Beneficial Bridge, which it stays on the west side of Beneficial Bridge.
There are still areas within the downtown that, in my opinion, need help to improve themselves economically. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So I have a motion on the floor. Let's do a roll call vote.
I don't, has your motion been seconded? I don't believe so.
Yes, there was a second.
I will second Councilman Miranda's motion.
So do I have to do the substitute motion
I
first?
believe the substitute motion takes precedent. What I would say is, what I'm gathering from the board's discussion is in July, you would like for staff and legal to come back with information about what we've committed to in downtown already, what would be the legal process if you wanted to reduce the TIF for downtown. You know, I understand Mr. Carlson's motion, which he has a defined percentage of 25%. Perhaps, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but perhaps, after we're able to get all the facts together and look at the information, we could present options for you to consider about what different options about potential reductions and not a set percentage at this point in time. That's just a thought.
Board Member Carlson.
As I understand, the substitute motion is only to come back and tell us what's already been committed. If the substitute motion includes giving us information about how we could reduce the amount going forward, then I can support it because it essentially does the same thing.
Well, here, I'm caught now in a box, and I appreciate being in a square there so I can get out, but I'm not trying to get out. I'm just trying to fix a solution that I believe needs to be addressed. Certainly, there's needs, and I wasn't as keen as Mr. Citro was in saying that there's certain areas that still need addressing, and then there's a possibility of extending it a little further so that other parts of the city could come in and have the same benefit. So I don't want to go into all those at once. I just want to know the figures that we need to help what we committed and the figures that we think we're going to get during that same time, so we can make a decision that is one based on facts, on factual numbers, not just to say I want 10% or 50%, and I have nothing with percentages. But I'm saying that before I vote, for the public's sake, the same ones we're talking about, the same ones we got elected to represent, that I'm not going to make an agreement on something I don't know all the figures on. We don't have a memory that goes back 4 or 5 years, or 2 years, or 3 months, and all the figures and the facts that we've given and everything that needs. We don't know those figures. For me to vote without knowing what that figure, just shoot 25% or 10%, that's not the way I was taught in Jefferson High School. You have to know the facts, and you have to understand what you're doing before you cast a vote.
Madam
That's
Chair,
all I'm saying.
why don't we vote on this and then I'll make my motion again. if you don't mind.
Mr. Burton has his hand up.
Yes, ma'am. The directors have already instructed staff to collect this information. We're in the process of doing that. If you just asked in July, we'll be happy to bring that information to you. We're already collecting it in a very profound way for your benefit, for you to make data-driven decisions. It's coming anyway.
Okay, so does that mean we don't need to do the motion because it's coming, or?
I think if you all want to have that information presented at the July meeting, I think the motion should move forward to that
Okay,
information.
so we have a substitute motion, or not a substitute. We have another motion made by Board Member Miranda, seconded by Board Member Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we have a motion by Board Member Carlson to include the 25% when looking at that.
I would like to make the same motion I made before. I'll replace the number 25% with options to reduce.
Okay.
And then, and to follow the presentation that Ms. Miranda just proposed.
One last time.
Just let me make sure that the seconded, okay.
I
now
would
we-
certainly be in favor of that if I had the numbers, all the
Okay.
numbers. I'm not,
because they're going to present them just before.
in July though.
Yeah.
And then we'll come right after.
Well, I don't mind supporting it, but I've got to know what those numbers are before I start doing something that it's not the proper thing legally.
They're going to present what you want, and then right after, they're going to present this, if we pass the motion.
Okay. So I have a motion from Board Member Carlson, seconded by Board Member Maniscalco. Let's do a roll call vote.
Goods?
Yeah.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
We're gonna go back to staff reports. Item number 3, next, West Tampa. Item number 3.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Jesus Nino, West Tampa and Drew Park, CRA Manager. In West Tampa, a lot of exciting things are occurring, and one of the exciting things that we have in place right now is our residential exterior grant program. We haven't really gone out there very broadly just yet as far as advertising it, but so far we have completed 4 projects. We've closed on them. That means we've already paid out the funding. So we replaced some roofs. You have 2 pictures here of 2 of the homes that had new roofs replaced on them. And so far, we've expended up to $51,000, basically $52,000 to date. We do have some community meetings planned. One is the May 7th Unity Fest, which is our West Tampa CRA event over at Julian B. Lane for us to promote our programs and grant programs. And also on June 1st, we're planning a community event over at the MLK Center specifically just for this grant program, so we can actually work with homeowners out there and help them fill out their applications. And we hope to have many, many more events out there, and plus with our communications individual to start spreading the word. We've already kind of got all the kinks out for the most part, so we're happy about that, this particular grant. And we're also working with an additional, right now as we speak, 19 households to help them with their grant applications. Our parking study is basically coming to a conclusion pretty soon. We had our final, hopefully our final community meeting on March 23rd, 2023 over at MLK Center. We're working with Pond & Company as a consultant. This whole study started because of the Main Street Corridor study that was completed over in 2020. One of the findings in that study was to do a parking study for the Main Street area and West Tampa CRA area in general. So hopefully once we're done with that report, we're going to take it to our CAC in May. Then everything goes well, we'll bring it to you for your blessing, basically, hopefully in July or August. That's West Tampa. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll go over to Drew Park. In Drew Park, we have many exciting projects as well. Most of them are in the study phase. This one example here is we're working with Placemakers Design Studios to help us come up with concepts and pricing estimates for the improvement of Tampa Bay Boulevard Linear Park, and also for a potential new community park out on Hubert Avenue. So the consultant presented at our last CAC meetings. We've had already a few community meetings over at Hillsborough Community College, and the next steps is for them to put together cost estimates. Then we can use that for budgeting purposes, or basically the CAC and the CRA here can kind of prioritize what kind of projects they want to do over in Drew Park. That concludes Drew Park. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Councilman Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it very much. If I may ask, there's a location about 1 block west of Lois. I believe the name of the street is Coolidge and Tampa Bay Boulevard. There used to be an area where semis would come in after doing their weeklies and stay there and park there. And it's all been cleaned out, and it's about 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres. It's a pretty big size operation. Can you tell us what's going there if you know?
I do not, but I can find out for you.
Yeah, because I know they cleared it all out. They've been doing the elevation and work on it, and it's a big piece of property, so it's across the street from the electrical wholesale company that's there. And it's a beautiful location, and I hope something nice is coming.
Hopefully. We'll find out for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Nope, nope. Thank you very much. Mr. McCray.
Good morning, Cedric McCray, East Tampa CRA Manager. Okay, first thing I would like to highlight is an initiative we partnered with Fifth Third Bank and Habitat for Humanity on Star Street. Probably about 1.5 years ago, we had received several requests for some exterior housing rehab, and we didn't have a program in place at that time, and we partnered with Fifth Third and Habitat for Humanity to work with several of the residents, and there were other volunteers that were there. I know that Councilman Goose came and spoke to the group assembled early that morning. Very cool that day, but we were able to have a positive effect on one block, and I think 4 or 5 homes have received some attention since then. So wanted to highlight that. The East Tampa overlay update was approved by the Planning Commission on February 13th. And will be coming back to the City Council, I believe, sometime in May or June, for your ratification. Tree trimming update. We held a meeting with the vendors on February 17th, just as a yearly or annual touch base on some of the programs successes, failures, challenges, and to get their viewpoint on some of the things and how we can improve and open the lines of communication even better and expedite payment. East Tampa Industrial District Workshop was invited to speak to a group of business owners along Columbus Drive going east of 34th towards 50th Street. Some of the conversations we discussed were revolving around some of the East Tampa CRA grant programs, such as facade and the like, and maybe expanding those programs because those business owners have such large parcels. $50,000 match may not go as long as if the amounts were increased. So those conversations are ongoing. The emergency roofing program, thank you again for your approval several months ago. We have completed up to 41 roofs and have another vendor that we're going to be bringing on board to help with that work, and that was as of April 12th. Having conversations with citywide mobility plans and Tampa Moves. There's going to be some public engagement that's going to be taking place during the East Tampa Partnership meetings in the months to come. Subcommittees are meeting regularly. We have filled, and I'm happy to say we filled the OSS 3 position that was vacated by Ms. Hughes last summer, and looking forward to onboarding that individual here very soon. FDOT East Tampa Streetscapes meetings are going on, and have had some good discussions about some of the concerns that residents have along Hillsborough Avenue and Martin Luther King, and those conversations will be ongoing. I would have to highlight the Hess Community Health and Education CRA Fair that's going to be taking place at Middleton High School. If I don't, I'm pretty sure our chair, Fran Tate, will be emailing me, and that's going to be taking place on April 29th. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So the public is invited to definitely come out, participate, and then learn more about the CRAs and specifically health checkups and making sure that we're taking care of our bodies. Public Safety Committee of East Tampa CRA is also working with Mobility and the Public Art Department. On May 13th, we've scheduled to do a crosswalk in conversations with Mobility about some of the thoroughfares in East Tampa within the CRA that have had some traffic incidents or fatalities, 34th and Cayuga and 34th and Potter, which is, that intersection is where Potter Elementary School is. So we will be redoing the crosswalk there, and hopefully we'll have some other events coming on in the future. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
Councilman Goods.
Was there a recent meeting with all the, contractors?
Which contractors were you?
I think for housing rehab.
No.
I understand there was a recent meeting with all the contractors that so they're ready to do work in the city that are part of the JOC program. Is that not?
There was a meeting that was facilitated by procurement. That was not our meeting.
Okay, all
Yes.
right, okay, so.
Yes,
so,
and it was to open up discussions and just kind of talk about the JOC program itself and some of the benefits.
So I was in the impression we were already moving forward with the JOC program, trying to help with the owner-occupied rehab to kind of get some of this stuff moving, so we're not there yet.
Yes, we were slated to have the presentation in April. The Housing Subcommittee chairperson was out of town, and we will be bringing that to the CAC in May.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else?
And that program, I think, the different contract, I think since we already have all these kind of on board with the city, the JOC program, I believe it can move faster with those individuals because there's more of them and they have to worry about all those other criteria and can move. I think that'd be a big win. I'm hoping it'll be a big win that we can push this stuff out. There's money, so those need to say we don't have money. You just need to get it going and not worry about ACD, but worry about how we're going to be able to push the money we have and look at the criteria. I know we're trying to mirror some of what they're doing, but I believe to move it a little bit faster, kind of move that criteria a little bit, and then get these guys to work to figure out some of these houses.
Yeah, understood. All that kind of yes, stuff. Sir. And the biggest thing is to make sure we're in line with the procurement process.
Right. Well,
yes.
Yeah, that's the problem too. Mm-hmm. That's been the problem. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Courtney Orr, Ybor City Development Manager. I have a variety of items listed here, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to highlight 3. So the 7th Avenue Archway Light Project that you've heard about for over a decade is finally completed, and we're celebrating it with a banner dropping. We're going to place a banner across the street at Centro Ybor across one of the archways, and then drop that banner. It'll have all the partnership logos with the new CRA logo on it. So that takes place next Wednesday at 11 a.m. If you can attend, please do. And then in regard to the Centennial Park RFQ that was issued, we received 6 strong responses. So the committee that was supposed to shortlist 6 down to possibly 2 or 3 decided to actually interview all 6 responses. There were consultants that responded to that RFQ. So there'll be an interview of all 6 on May the 2nd. And then if you haven't had a chance to see the new mural that's located at the Ybor CRA office building at 2015 East 7th Avenue, please do. I think it's a great example of how you can celebrate history with art. So I think we can see a lot more of that in Ybor. To me, I think it would make perfect sense in Ybor. And that concludes my report.
I have one quick comment. In Centennial Park by the immigrant statue, there are some flags up, I believe state of Florida, United States flag, and they're very tattered. Okay. Are you aware of that, and do you know, if so, if they're going to be replacing those?
Yeah, parks, I'll make a note, parks, when we see those situations due to bad weather and wind, they'll replace them for us.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Okay.
No? No? Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Before we go ahead, Mr. McCray, I see you still here. I've got emails, and I don't know if Ms. Hills has gotten them or not, but apparently the group that was here this morning, they've sent several emails in reference to a tree that is and I'll have CT, she should be listed, probably can send you that email as well. There is a tree that's inside a memorial park that I guess is fallen over or is about to fall over, and it's uprooting some of the stones, headstones. Okay. So we'll get to the CT, maybe get somebody to take a look, and maybe Ms. Hill hasn't got to it yet, but we want to make sure we get a look at that.
Right, yeah, normally I know that it happened last summer, and that was actually brought to my attention by Ms. Copeland Miller in an area where her family is located, but we'd have to have some discussions about what the it's private property, because Parks and Rec, at that time I could call Parks and Recreation to go in and do the work, and they move fairly quickly.
Now, but I'll see, I think Ms. Eileen Henderson sent it to us. Okay. And I talked this earlier, I said, that's private property now, so I don't know if we can go in and do anything on that now, but we want to make sure it brought to your attention. Right?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Just going to the next item. CRA board, I'm requesting that we take items 5, 6, and 10 together. They're all interrelated to the services agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
The services agreement, you were provided a substitution from Mr. Massey yesterday. There was only the table in the substitution was changed. The services agreement, for the most part, is very similar in structure to what has been done in the past several years. There are 3 changes that I want to point out to you. Under Article 3, where it talks, Article 3, Section A, that talks about CRA director and staff, the change that was made in this area really aligns to the direction that you've set in the restructuring of the CRA, plus the positions that we've requested. This change also includes the 4 full-time equivalent positions exclusively managing housing programs within the CRAs, and 1 additional full-time position to manage art programs in the CRAs. So these are a total of 5 positions that will be accounted for in the amendment to the CRA budget. Additionally, in this services agreement, the last service agreement went until 2022. This service agreement, we're requesting that you take it back all the way to October 1, 2022, And instead of us coming back to you in October of this year with another services agreement, we're just asking you to take it out until the end of 2024, the fiscal year 2024. In section B of Article 3, the compensation piece, this is where we talk about the changes to if there is ever a vacancy in the CRA director position, that the city would provide an interim CRA director. In this section, the CRA board or the CRA as an agency would reimburse for those costs. It also addresses the compensation of interim, or if there were to be some kind of compensation for the administrator and deputy administrator to be serving in this role. It addresses that pursuant to changes in the personnel manual as requested. And then finally, the last change to the services agreement is under payments, which is Article 4. This is the biggest change. This restructure that I've proposed to you guys is to have not CRA staff being geographically only working in one area. They would work in all districts based on need, using the specialties that they have. And the way that we're doing that is doing the expense allocation by percentage in each CRA district. So when you look at that table, you'll notice the different percentages for each one of the CRA districts and how those expenses would be allocated. I did a 2022 analysis using that percentage just to see what the numbers would look like. The numbers mostly, for the most part, are the same. I'm going to put it on the Elmo.
So as you're speaking, the one we vote on is item 10 for the services agreement, and you're discussing item 6 within that, correct?
5 and 6.
5 and 6, okay.
Yes, 5 and 6 is addressed in this services memo.
Chairman, well, she's addressing it, but I have some specific questions for 6.
Sure. I just wanted to do the presentation and cover all of that, and then we could ask questions. I mean, we could discuss it. So item 5, the arts position and the staffing, that's included in the services agreement. Item number 6 is taken care of through the services agreement, and the number 10 is the services agreement. So what you see on the Elmo, I was just talking to you about the chart that shows the allocation, the expense allocation, and what it's broken down into is by the size of the TIF increment. And so in 2022, the expenses that were paid for salary was $312,000. With this adjustment and doing it based on that percentage, the proposed reimbursement for 2022 would have been $339,000. Just showing you that it went up a little bit, but not a lot. Central Park would have gone up, but the biggest change would be to the downtown non-core with their percentage. The other districts, they went up slightly, some of them went down. So that's the difference in how we're doing the calculation. But the benefits to that is what you have moved forward with this restructuring, is to having the benefit of all the CRA staff working and where the need is, working on all the districts. So this was the best way to take care of those expenses. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Booth, and then Carlson.
Well, I want to go to 6, and I mean, this would be specific to the memo from Mr. Bennett in reference to Mr. Drumgo and Ms. Travis. And I'm trying to figure out, the compensation here. And the numbers, when I look at what the director was currently making, then when that person resigned to now, I'm trying to figure out how the dollar amount had come up to make sure they're properly compensated. So I don't know if Mr. Bennett's aware to come on and explain that, or you're here to explain it, but I'd like to know, because I want to make sure both of you are properly compensated to the penny, and not just, just say, here's a blanket number here, and it doesn't come up to the standard I feel that you should be compensated for, this board feels.
Thank you for the comments. Under the compensation section of the services agreement, it gives the chief of staff the authority to make any adjustments for compensation according to the personnel manual. So in his discretion, he can make that. What you're asking for, I believe what you're asking for is if a position was vacant at $165,000 for a full year, you're suggesting to split that $165,000 as a form of compensation for the two of us. And respectfully, I thank you. I appreciate that, but what that would suggest is that we were dedicating 100% of our time without being divided to doing that position, and that's not the case. We are not dedicating 100% of our time. Well, he might be, but we're not dedicating 100% of our time because we're also balancing the other titles and responsibilities that we have. So that would not be fair to do that. That's not an equitable way to do that.
Well, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, from the time you, Mr. Drumgo, took position until now, whatever city time that was equated, that you had to do city business for the CRA business, I want to know that to make sure that you're getting your money and what the percentage of that. I think the city percentage is someone do some extra work, like 4%. So what is that percentage you're going to get now for this particular assignment, subtracting whatever city time, and now we say this is the money that's split between you and Mr. Drumgo. That's what I'm looking
A
at.
couple of things, and Mr. Bennett had a conflict, so he's not here today, and I don't know, I can't give you exact figures, but a couple of things. We don't, at their level, or they don't keep time based on when they're doing their city job and when they're doing their CRA job. So there's no tracking of that internally in our system. What this agreement, the services agreement allows is for a supplement or a bonus or an additional amount to be paid to Ms. Travis and to Mr. Drumgo for providing services to the CRA because they're working this job on top of their other jobs. What has also occurred at the same time is that there's been a change to the personnel manual that would allow the chief of staff to pay more than the 4% cap in these limited sorts of instances. So he has got a figure that's more than 4%, I believe, but I can't tell you exactly what that is. But that's
Let's
go back to the service agreement. Because the service agreement says that the director answers to the CRA board, correct?
Yeah.
So who sets, in that case, who sets the director's salary? Is it personnel? Does this board set the personnel salary? No, just like we, the city council, supposedly should be setting the city council attorney's salary.
It's typically set in the budget that you approve, either a city council or the CRA, what that salary is going to be. But been in a strange situation for a while now where you do have a CRA director position there, but it has been empty. And so you've had Ms. Travis and Mr. Drumgo filling that in on an interim basis. Now, is that the entire amount going to be paid over to them under this? I don't believe that's the case, but you'd have to ask Mr. Bennett exactly what the figure, he has a figure in mind to supplement it. I think it is more than 4%, it's definitely more than 4%. So.
I just want to make sure that, irregardless, if they did city work and doing CRA work, irregardless of that, it should be regardless of what you say, because their time is not calculated like other city employees. I just want to make sure these folks have done a great job, that they're properly compensated.
And I believe that they're going to get a supplement to recognize their additional services that goes above what typically you would get to recognize supplemental services. I think that's the intent. But again, we don't break up our time that way, and I think from Mr. Bennett's perspective, and I don't mean to speak for him, is that, the time that they spend doing CRA work takes away from what the time that they would be spending on their other city positions. So he recognizes that they're doing more and there needs to be a supplement paid to them to address that they're doing more, but you can't just give them $165,000.
That wasn't what I was saying at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that at all.
Can we get a motion to extend to 12:30? Motion from Councilman Vera, second from Councilmember Citro, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Councilman Miranda?
12:30 in the afternoon, not in the morning, right?
Well, we might be here till 12:30.
I want to make sure. Let me ask you, please, Ms. Travis and Mr. Drumbo. I'm not going to ask you for a specific number between the three of you, yourself, Mr. Drumbo, and Mr. Bennett. Have you all come to an understanding with Mr. Bennett?
Yes, sir.
And are you satisfied with that number, whatever the number is? Because I don't want to talk about it privately. I don't have it in front of me. Am I saying that you are satisfied with it?
I would like to put this to bed, yes.
Mr.
Change
Rumble,
satisfaction.
may I ask you the
Yes.
same question, sir? I just want to get to the meat of the chase.
Yes.
Is Mr. Rumble also satisfied? Are you speaking? You're satisfied, so there should be no more discussion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll make that motion then, because you're chair, right?
Well, we don't need a motion, I mean.
No.
I'm fine.
It's done, all right. Councilman Crowe? Okay, Councilman Carlson?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Board Member Goods has worked hard on this and pushed hard for it. This is his last meeting. I suggest two things that we do, because we have to, like, up or down, do something today. I would suggest that you make a motion, pick the dollar number you think that the two of them should share. Make a motion that we ask Chief Bennett to consider that number to equitably distribute it to the two, and then by the current agreement, he can make up that mine, but at least that's one more Hail Mary to try to maybe, I don't know what the numbers are either, but it might be a bigger number than what's there. The second thing is, I think we ought to, I don't know if I can do this now or I have to wait till after we approve the agreement, but I would like to make a motion to create an addendum that enables the CRA board to issue bonuses to the CRA staff.
Councilman Miranda, wait.
Do I have a second or not?
Do you have, what is the motion for the bonus addendum?
Yeah, I move that to ask staff to come back in the July meeting to present a proposed amendment to the contract for approval that would enable the CRA board to issue bonuses to CR staff.
Do you have a second?
The one thing I would caution you on this, while they are CRA staff, they are city employees, so they are subject to the HR policies and personnel manuals. And so all of that really is covered in the city's personnel manual.
But as we said 4 years ago, our leverage is that we don't have to outsource it to the city. We can hire our own staff. We can create our own entity. It's been presented in the past that
And if you would
they're
like to
free.
do that, that's fine. You
They're
can come up
free
with your own
legal.
policies, but if you're going to use the city staff to carry out the CRA policies, then we do have to, then the city personnel policy does come into effect.
So embedded in this would be that since the city offers legal and other HR advice to us, that if we propose bringing this addendum back in July, then they would have, the CRA staff would have a chance to meet with legal and the HR and Chief Bennett, and they could decide what they think can meet with it. They can decide whether they need to modify the plans. But if we don't have any control to set the salaries of the CRA staff, and we don't have any control to bonus them, we don't have any control to hold them accountable, then they don't really report to us. They're city staff. And so we need some lever to be able to motivate staff to perform at a higher standard. So anyway, my proposal's out.
There's a motion and a second from Councilman Goods, and Councilman Miranda had his hand up.
I'm surprised to see something like this coming after we want to reduce the budget of one or some, maybe one to start with and others by 25%. So I'm not against raises. I asked both individuals that are here if they were satisfied. They said yes. So evidently they must have spoke to whoever's making the decision. That would be Mr. Bennett. So now we want to give something, whatever it is, because we don't even know what they got, to something. I don't deal that way. When I ran finance companies, when I ran things of that nature, I would have a meeting and find out what we did and what we didn't do and where were the standards at and how we can compensate each other. But I'm not a game player just to play the game. I wish the Rays go 161 games without losing. That's impossible, but that can happen. So I'm not against raises, but for arbitrarily and capriciously without knowing what we're doing to do it, that's not by the way I got elected. The people that I represent, but the same ones that anybody else represents, want an under transparency operation to find out what it is and where it was. And we've asked, at least I've asked, and both of you said yes, that you were satisfied. And when you take something when you pay from both things, that means that at one time you had to take part of this time to go do part of that job. maybe he had to work a couple hours more a day. I don't know. But I just don't operate that way. And I'm not opposed to voting by myself. I've done that many times. And I'm at awe, I'm surprised that we're doing this. We want to further tear apart this government by continuing saying that the administration and the CRA are in conflict. Well, if you don't want the employees to be city employees, start your own employees and see what happens. You won't have enough money to do anything. So I'm just saying that I'm through playing games, and I don't mean disrespectful to anyone here, but if I have to vote alone the rest of my life, as long as I'm here, I don't mind doing it. Thank you very much, and have a very nice day.
Councilman Good.
We can put it to bed. Mr. Rand, all due respect, I respect you highly, so you've been here a long, long time. But you ask them if they're satisfied. They're not gonna tell you they're unsatisfied, sir. I'm just being honest with you. They're not gonna tell you that. They're city employees, man. I can look at that police officer right there. He know how the game is played. He ain't gonna say he's not unhappy. There's a consequence when you do that. I've been employed. I know how that works. And I say it all the time. Some of you have not been city employees. You don't know how the game is played or how the playbook is. So they're gonna say they're satisfied, just to move it on, and they're gonna give them whatever they give them. I'm hoping it's the right thing. But I know it's not all what they deserve. But we can move on and vote on it, Mr. Carlson. I'm not gonna make a motion reference to it. They said they're satisfied, but I know in their hearts, I know they ain't satisfied, and we're gonna move on. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Citro.
Councilman Carlson, when you say staff, are you talking about the two top tier, or are you talking about all CRA staff? Because if you're talking all CRA staff, correct me if I'm wrong, CRA staff, some of it is paid through the CRA funds in which they work, and city.
No, all the CRA staff are paid 100% from the CRA budget.
So then in that case, we would have to.
Let me say, Elise Drumgo and I are the only two
We're
that.
city
We're city employees, and in this compensation, this services agreement with this compensation piece, that would be the portion of CRA, but we're paid from city general fund services.
So going back to my question, if Mr. Carlson's talking about all CRA staff and they're getting paid with the CRA budget, wouldn't we have to ask the CRAs themselves?
No, you're the CRA board.
You're the CRA board.
For transparency, we would probably have to go to the CRAs themselves. Thank you very much.
May I offer some comments, please? I appreciate this conversation the reason we're having this conversation is because of the work that we're doing. We would much rather have full-time people, hardworking people with grit working on our team than to be compensated extra for doing extra work. We are here because we're public servants. We love what we do. We're good at it. And so I would give us the tools that we need to do the work, which is some of that is in here with the 5 full-time equivalent positions. Regarding bonuses and rewarding staff, I appreciate that. I believe that that's directed to the work that we're doing, but we receive a paycheck for the work that we're supposed to do. That's the motivation, and that should be the motivation. We're paid, and we don't do bonuses at the city.
Thank you, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, if we were a separate entity that had our own staff, and I'm not proposing that right now. And as I said earlier, the administration has worked really closely with us the last year or so. But keep in mind that 2 years before that, we had rooms full of people coming and complaining because not enough things were getting done. And we were making the motions, but nothing was getting done. And so to me, this is I'm just going to be transparent. It's a negotiation between the city staff and the CRA that we need to think creatively, because the CRA needs to be more nimble and move faster and get more results. And the way you do that is to, first of all, hold people accountable, and hopefully the new executive director will have some ability to do that, working with city staff. And then the second thing would be to reward people. And my proposal has nothing to do with these two folks. The proposal is just to ask the city staff have a discussion about amending the contract so that we, CRA board, have the right to put forward bonuses. And to Board Member Citro's very good comment, most likely what would happen is that the CRA director would propose to us bonuses for their staff, and then we would approve it. So all this does not, my proposal is just for us to put in the contract that we have the ability to do it. And the purpose of it is to have the city staff, especially chief of staff, work through the legal and other issues to try to figure out if we can do it, and if we can, how would we do it? We put it in the contract. If we put it in the contract, then we have to work with the CRA director to figure out how we would bonus people, how much and for what. And the whole purpose is to hold people accountable so that they hit their goals. If they come back in July and say, we can't do it, absolutely not, then we can ask questions and then we're stuck. But all I'm asking in this motion is for us to ask city staff to look at the possibility of an addendum to enable the CRA board to provide bonuses to CRA staff, and to have the city staff report to that on the July CRA meeting.
We have a motion for Councilman Carlson, second for Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
It's tied.
So it fails.
You want to do a roll call vote? Roll call vote.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
No.
Miranda,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Citro,
No.
and Hertug's not here.
Okay.
The motion fails.
All right. Yes, ma'am, do you have more for the report?
No, I want to continue to, that was questions on item 6, I believe.
I have some comments about the overall contract when you're
Sure.
ready.
Okay, you ready?
Now?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I would like to make in prior years, as I recall, Nicole and I had a long conversation about this yesterday, and thank you for stepping out of lunch to talk about it, but in prior years, I recall that there was a dollar amount in the contract, and this year we don't have that. And they're asking us to go ahead and approve this without that. There are the buckets, and you just presented like a working straw man on the dollars, which look okay. But in July, they're going to come back and ask us to approve the budget. And so what I would like to do is, just before we make a motion to ask CRA staff to report in the July meeting on the budget that was contracted for each of the last 4 years, and the budget amendments that were approved for each of the last 4 years. So that should be a real simple thing before we.
So the 4 year, so what was in, so that I understand, what was in the contract for 4 years, and then ultimately what was approved when they trued up the.
Yeah, so it would just be a spreadsheet. It would say,
Yeah.
2018 or 2019, the dollar amount in the contract, and then to the right, it would say the addendum amount, and then in the column, it would have the total. That's
Okay.
it, real simple chart. So
Got
I'd
it.
just like to make the motion to have city staff or CRA staff present that chart at the July meeting before the budget discussion.
Before budget presentation?
Yeah.
Motion from Councilman Carlson, do we have a second? Second from Councilman Goods, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The second one is, I think because in prior years, the contract included a dollar amount, I would like to make a motion to ask staff to come back in the July meeting to present a contract amendment that would include a budget amount. So that would go, Morris and I talked about this yesterday, that would go hand in hand with the budget approval. So we would approve the budget, and then separately, we would approve an amendment to the contract, which would include a budget number.
Okay.
Motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember.
I want to make sure that what is being said is that you have a budget amount and then you have the actual what happened.
Yes.
And then you show the differences
And we
where it
true up
came
the
from.
difference. That's correct. So right now, what happens is the contract has a dollar amount. Once, because of vacancies, hiring, the
Right, I
numbers
understand.
fluctuate, so we true up at the end.
No problem with that.
And I think what he's asking for is, since we don't have an estimate in this budget now. Once we get those numbers, the projection for the future years, bring an amendment so that we could put that in the agreement. It still doesn't preclude that you won't have true up again at the end.
I was gonna say that although it sounds great, the variables may be different, higher or lower, based on what happens during that year.
Yeah, there's always a true up at the end of the year.
I understand.
And since this covers 2 fiscal years, we would probably have one figure for FY '23,
I
which we
understand.
know, and then another figure proposed figure FY '24.
Got it.
So.
Yes, sir.
And the purpose of this is just to show the public that we're being good custodians of the money, that we're sitting with the CRA hat, trying to hold the city accountable. If the city comes back and says it's more money, we can always approve that another time. But it at least puts it in the contract, so it makes it more formal.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson. Who was the seconder? Second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Last thing is, we talked about staff. The city has a lot of staff members. The CRA has very few. And in this whole analysis that Nicole's been doing over the last few months, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the public also about performance of the different CRA districts. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but I would just ask that you, and I'm not going to make a motion, but just ask that you go through and as you're restructuring, don't take somebody and put them in a cubicle downstairs. Like really find, are we getting, CRA doesn't have much money to deal with, so are we really getting our money's worth? There's been a lot of criticism from CAC members and others about the amount that we're spending on people and overhead, and that we're expanding people. And so at the same time as we might be adding positions or reallocating, if there are positions or people that we need to cut, we need to do that too. And it might be that they're reallocated somewhere else within the city, but we need to be able to have the ability to go back to chief of staff or whomever and say, hey, we don't need these other two positions. We're hiring different positions, because we have to make sure we keep the budget costs as low as possible. So I would just ask, with you and the new CRA director, if you would please look at all those positions and make sure that we need everything that's there and that we're getting full productivity from everybody as to your requirements. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. I'm not trying to counterpoint anything, but when you look at something like this, you have to make it based on what other cities are doing or other entities that have a CRA comparable to this one. And with a comparable, we have over 4,400 employees in the city, and the CRA, how many they have, I really don't know right now. But you're mixing apples and oranges, and the city has very different departments in the CRA that are not in the CRA, and they don't do any type of work like the CRA does. So you have to compare yourself with something that's likable in another CRA outside the city of Tampa that has a comparable amount of same employees versus the comparable amount of the population of that city or that entity. That's the only way I would support that.
Councilman Goods.
But I think the bigger issue is this, and this is what you hear the public say, is that you have in East Tampa. Let me give you an example. Why does everything take so long to move? Well, if you only got so many staff on a CRA, but you got a big city over here, but yet the city is going to run to do what the city needs to do regularly, and this CRA person can't get their stuff through because the city business comes first. That's what I think is the challenge, of making sure you have designated people in your CRA that can move this stuff. If you got a procurement person in your CRA that can move their items, if you got a person that does housing or a staff that can move their stuff versus HCD to move their stuff. I think that's the key of how you get some stuff moved, to have designated people to go to. If I got to go to, Miranda, if you the guy in my CRA I go to, and I ain't got to go through 5 other people in the house, but I can go to you and you're handling all our CRA work, we getting it done. So that's just my theory on it.
But may I?
Yes, ma'am.
The 4 positions that we're adding exclusively for housing, they're to work only on CRA housing initiatives. So that would move that. But I take issue if any CRA manager or somebody on CRA staff saying that city business is coming first in the internal departments. It's not true. It's not true. So I also going to address an email that you guys received in your inbox saying that how long things take to move. Yes, it's been historically taken a long time to move. There's operational challenges that we've had. There's been turnover that you have. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that doesn't need to be there with some of these programs in regard. But we are being held to a different standard and timeline than what was previously allowed in this space, right? Everybody, so everybody wants the results like tomorrow. It takes forever to make some of these, not forever, but it takes a long time to make some of the changes that we're making. You're moving a naval ship to go a different direction. It takes time. We are doing the work and laying the foundation to do that. So I take issue if somebody is saying that it goes to a different internal city service department and it goes to, that's not true. That's not true. And I'll also say that some of the things that are not happening is because of the policies that you have or have not addressed with the CACs. Like, so you have CACs and subcommittees. I'm going to say it here because I've said it before. Those subcommittees to the CACs was a substitution for what wasn't happening on a staff level. Okay? And so if things are being slowed down, I showed you a presentation of 247 meetings that we're having to staff. You have 13 people staffing 247 meetings. We are trying to right that ship. But there's a shared responsibility in this. There's a shared responsibility by the CACs in knowing their lane and knowing their role. There's a shared responsibility by this CRA board for you to make hard decisions regarding policies in the CACs moving forward. There's a shared responsibility on the administration. And I think all of us want the same thing to happen. But it's not going to happen overnight. And we're holding people accountable. So Councilman Carlson is asking for me to look at positions and job descriptions. We will start looking at job descriptions because if I'm working at 150%, everybody on my team needs to be working 150%. And so I'm saying that to you as a CRA board, and I'm also saying it to the CRA staff to hear me. I'm not playing games right now, right? The CRAs have an expiration date. We should be all operating under a sense of urgency to be out of a job in CRAs. That's the kind of urgency and work that we're doing with CRAs, and that's the expectation that I have. And I'm saying it here, I'm saying it on camera, but I'm saying it for them to hear me too. That's the expectation I have, and that's what we're gonna do moving forward. I don't even remember the question that you were asking that I'm answering.
I think you pretty much
right now.
I think you pretty much gave us the right as you told us when you taking this ship. So
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
There's work to be done. We're here doing the work. And I ask that your favorable approval of the services agreement to make sure that we can continue making the changes that you have done. You've done the heavy lifting in having these difficult conversations the last several months. You've made incremental decisions. This services agreement ties that up as well. All right?
I got you. And Mr. Drumgo, I still want to, even though I won't be here, I still want to take that trip.
Can we get a motion to extend for another 15 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Booth to extend 15 minutes, second from Councilman Randall, in favor.
Aye.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you all off, but if we're done with other motions relating to the services agreement, if you all could move the substitute, the resolution approving
Councilman
substitute.
Carlson or Vieira, did you have anything else? I saw some hands.
No, I'm
No?
I'll move the substitute resolution.
Councilman Carlson, you had your hand up.
Just real fast, Nicole, to what we were saying about staff, as you're handing off to the new person, if you could work with her and I guess Chief of Staff to make sure there's, to what Board Member Miranda was saying, the work in the CRA is different than the work in other city departments. And so we need to make sure there's measurable accountability and standards, and that's reviewed regularly by the new CRA director, and probably in tandem with HR or Chief of Staff. But we need to make sure that there's a set of criteria and performance criteria for each one that's built around CRAs, not other city activities. Thank you.
That's performance evaluations. We'll take care of it.
Thank you. Councilman Citro, you made a motion to move the substitute resolution? Is that correct?
Substitute resolution for item number 10.
Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Yes, ma'am. Anything else?
No, I think we have a couple of required approvals. We should move through this pretty quickly.
All staff reports are finished at this time.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Go ahead. So item number 11, I believe, is the next resolution for approval.
So moved.
second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Good, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up is item number 12.
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 13.
Move 13.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 14.
14.
Second.
Item number 14 has been moved by Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up, we have some appointments to CAC. Can we move them as a group, 15 through 24, or do you need individual?
15 through 17, I believe, are all for the same.
17, I will move 15 through 17.
Motion to move 15 through 17 from Councilmember Citro, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 18.
Move 18.
Motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item number 19.
Move 19. Second.
Councilmember Miranda to move item number 19, second from Councilmember Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item number 20.
Move 20.
Councilmember Miranda with the motion, second from
Vera.
Vieira. All in favor for item number 20?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Move 21.
Motion from Councilmember Miranda with a second from Councilmember Citro for item number 21. Second from Councilmember Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Kid Mason, item number 22.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
tell me about Kid Mason, where we're at, and we got reprogramming money, so tell me.
That's affirmative. This is a reprogram in order to account for the additional costs. You all had some feedback, and then there's also been firmer numbers on the bids, and so this is just to make sure that we have the money in the budget to cover it, which is what this reprogram is for.
All right, so when are we gonna start? I mean, 'cause that's been a long time coming. This is going on 4 years. I mean, you know.
I don't want to speak for the project management team, but this is on the funding side of it, so.
So Jeff doesn't have an answer? I mean, we talking about 4 years later, you know?
This went out to bid, there was a bid, this money covers what the bid is, so once we get this approval, it goes back to contract management. The bid is let and goes through the process, so we are on the way to construction. This is the last step.
Gee whiz, man.
Move 22.
We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Citro. All in favor? Aye. And that was item number 22. All right, item number 23. Motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item number 24. Item number 24 has been, yes, ma'am?
Well, I have a copy of the annual report for you all and for the record, and so I'll pass those out as we wrap up.
We have, thank you very much, sir. Councilmember Miranda with the motion, second from Councilmember Citro. Is that correct? All in favor? Item number 24. Aye. Any opposed? Councilmember Carlson. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say thank you real fast to Board Member Goods and Board Member Citro, whose last meeting it is today. And just thank you for partnering with us all in the last 4 years. Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, I enjoyed working with both of them.
And I echo those sentiments. Both work very, 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 very hard. You're always out in the community, and you're not going away. Just because you're not sitting up here, I know you're going to be just as involved, and the people appreciate you. So, anybody else? No,
No, just echo that, and I mean, this CRA, the things that the CRA has done in terms of changing the scope of the CRA with these two gentlemen has been tremendous, so I echo those sentiments. Thank you.
All right, information reports and new business. Councilman Carlson, do you have anything, sir? Councilman Vieira?
Nothing, sir.
Councilman Citro?
None. Nope, thank you.
Councilman Goods?
None, sir.
Do we have a motion to receive and file?
Receive file, so moved.
Motion from Councilmember Miranda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. See you at 5.